Red Wing Hockey. Tonight's game is brought to you by the all-new Jeep Wagoneer and Jeep Cherokee. When it comes to four-wheel drive, one word says it all, Jeep. And by Thornapple Valley's great-tasting hot dogs, hams, bacon, and sausage. And by Michigan National Corporation Banks, where we give you more money for your money. And by the Detroit area J.C. Penney stores, your headquarters for kangaroo shoes. And by your 47 Greater Detroit area Midas shops. Trust the Midas touch. And by Budweiser, the king of beers, and proud sponsor of the U.S. Olympic team. For all you do, this Bud's for you. And by Little Caesars, home of the famous Pizza and Panza Pizza. One of the Little Caesars 150 Detroit area locations is near you. Now, here's Bruce and Sid.
And again from the arena here in St. Louis, the second game of the Stanley Cup playoffs between the Detroit Red Wings and the host St. Louis Blues. Hi again, everybody. The Red Wings and the Blues played a heck of a fine hockey game yesterday. St. Louis won it by a score of 3-2. Sid Abel, in the first period, the Red Wings indeed could have been out in front in this hockey game, but for the play of a fellow named Mike Liut.
Yes, he robbed Ron Duguay. He robbed Yzerman. So many chances the Wings had to get on top, but it took a long time before they could score, and the Wings finally come up with their first goal on a goal by Kissio.
But it was Mike Liut, really, that came to the front early in the hockey game.
Yes, definitely, Bruce. Goaltending is going to be the big thing. Duguay took a shot. Liut made the save. Kissio got the puck on the side, tried to put it in, and Liut just threw that arm out and made one of his big saves in the first period.
The Red Wings were behind 3-0 going into the latter half of that third period last night. They came up with two big goals and made a game out of it.
Well, there's a case where Ivan Boldarev got the puck on the blue line, passed it in the corner to Yzerman. Steve walked right out in front. Liut beat him, but the puck was left right on the doorstep. Kissio from behind the net reached around, put it in, then got plowed by Wilson, knocking him flat.
Red Wings had problems with their power play. They didn't score their first 7 times, but on the number 8, Ron Duguay ended up with the puck in the net.
Well, it was a case of Boldarev and Park playing back and forth to one another, and then finally a big shot by Boldarev over to Duguay. Duguay walked right out and with a backhand shot beat Liut. It came a little too late in the game. Had it been a little earlier, Bruce, I think the Wings would have tied the hockey game.
Last night, the Red Wings just continued to pepper that net with 10-12 seconds remaining and came within a whisker of tying it.
Well, here was a case where the puck bounced around out in front of the net, and when it did finally come out, Brad Park could not quite reach it. He did get it back out in front, and then Bothwell just laid on the puck, and there was only a few seconds to go. St. Louis won the hockey game 3-2.
One of the highlights for us last night, the return of John Ogrodnik. Tonight, Dwight Foster, who came to make the trip after the Red Wings lost. He'll be back in the lineup tonight.
Well, he will definitely help. There's no doubt Dwight Foster's not 100%, Bruce, but he works, and he'll go in the corners, and he'll make St. Louis make mistakes. Hopefully he can shoot the puck. They say he is shooting the puck better than he did before he was hurt, so he can help.
Okay, now we're going to join Larry Adderley live here in St. Louis.
Thank you, Bruce. Down here, we'll be talking to some of the players during the intermissions. We'll look at those highlights again, and we'll keep you up to date on the 7 other division semifinal games already underway. Montreal ahead of Boston and Quebec ahead of Buffalo. We'll keep you up to date on those scores, too. Now back to Bruce. We'll rejoin Bruce and Sid for the start of tonight's hockey game after this message.
And so we say hi again from here in St. Louis, where the Detroit Red Wings moving around their goaltender at one end of the rink, and the St. Louis Blues likewise around Mike Liut at the opposite end. The game just a moment or two from getting underway. The Detroit Red Wings, maybe their backs to the wall, but when you're only one game into the best-of-5 series, and a lot of things can happen, and the Red Wings' road record has been a pretty good one. Their season record over St. Louis, 5 wins and 3 losses, and a good close hockey game last night, and so we're looking for what should be another one here this evening. The Red Wings and the St. Louis Blues. And now we are awaiting the playing and the singing of the national anthem prior to the start of this second game, 1984 National Hockey League Stanley Cup playoffs.
Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last evening, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we
opposing goaltenders the same as last evening. Greg Stefan will be in the nets for the Detroit Red Wings tonight. Greg, who's played so effectively, particularly in the latter half of the season. And against the Blues, 3 wins and his second loss last night. And for the St. Louis Blues, Mike Liut. He was 3-3 on the season against Detroit, but even on a losing cause one time when the Wings shut him out 3-0, he was picked as one of the stars of the hockey game. He single-handedly defeated the Red Wings once in Detroit when the Wings lost by a goal and outshot St. Louis something like, I'm trying to think, 45-21. He's just been good against Detroit and a lot of other teams too. Well, we'll see if the Wings can get to him here tonight as this hockey game is underway. And from the opening face-off, here is Steve Yzerman at center ice. Yzerman and Duguay, though, and Ogrodnik head for the Detroit bench with a quick player change. Lane Lambert comes on with Boldarev and Kelly Kissio. Now moving out center ice. Terry Johnson fires it into the Detroit zone. Ladouceur of the Wings goes in behind his own goal, being chased by Sutter up the right side, and Lane Lambert dumps it center ice. Tipped down by Ivan Boldarev. Puck knocked away, and now here's the Blues. Babbage back into the Detroit zone. Took a bump from Ladouceur, and the puck cleared back out to the center ice area. Mano and Dwight Foster on now, the checking unit of Detroit. Lane Lambert over on the right side couldn't get to the Detroit bench. Here now Foster played it into the St. Louis zone. It came right back out, and Danny Gare comes on replacing Lambert with a play back into the St. Louis end. In behind his own net, Ramage. He was checked right there by Foster. The puck went loose into the corner. That's Foster's value. Is going to be a penalty coming up as Ramage actually broke his stick, swinging it at Dwight Foster. And so the Red Wings, with just 1 minute gone, are going to have a power play, and we'll be back for that. Let's pause for this.
Dwight Foster doing what he does best, going in deep, and talk about a two-hander, possible of intent to injure because Foster coming off the injury list, but Ramage got the penalty. The Wings will have the power play.
Foster had already taken it away from Ramage. Now he's off for slashing at the 1 minute mark. The Wings have the extra man. Reed Larson dumped it along the boards into the corner after it skipped away from Yzerman. Now in behind the goal, deflected into the corner, and John Ogrodnik is running at him, and the puck fired down the ice. That was Pat Hickey that took a run at Ogrodnik. The play goes in behind the Detroit goal. In behind his own net now, Reed Larson. Larson sends it up the left side for Yzerman, coming out center ice. Yzerman drives it, and that'll be an icing call. If it's not played by the goaltender, it is, so there's no icing call. Now Brad Park steps into Hickey. Here's Yzerman holding it in, and he shot it off to the side of the net. Liut way out of the goal, and it came back now to Yzerman. Yzerman sets up Ogrodnik, and it went through him into the corner, and it's driven down the ice. Wings got what looked to be a lucky bounce on the puck, but it skipped away. Yzerman in behind his own goal. A minute left now in the power play for the Wings as Duguay turns back in his own zone. Lost it there, and Park has to chase it into the corner. On Duguay. Send it off to the corner now to Larson. It came loose, and the Blues pick it up. And Reed sends it back out to Wickenheiser in Detroit, having trouble with their power play as they did most of the night last evening. Got in behind the Detroit goal. We've got a noisy crowd. Here now Larson. Larson swings it up the right side. Yzerman hands it back to him. Here's Reed Larson on the move. Larson over the line. Larson drops it off for Lambert. He played it off to the side of the St. Louis goal in behind the net. It skipped away from John Ogrodnik. And the Blues now clear it beyond Yzerman, back out center ice. It just missed Rick Wilson, who is moving up quickly. Lambert skates back into his own zone. Hands it there now to Brad Park to Lambert. 10 seconds left in the penalty. Ivan Boldarev into the St. Louis zone. Here is Boldarev, a little short pass, handled by Larson with a drive. Knocked away by Liut. Larson put it right out in front, and Lambert's shot was blocked by Liut. Lane Lambert, what an opportunity he had. Penalty is over, and Ramage is back on, and they're 2-on-1 down the ice. Babbage over the line. Babbage with a drive, and the save made. The rebound, they score.
Really, the lucky bounce right back out to Delorme, and Delorme really put it back in just under the top crossbar. But the Wings having their first opportunity, and Lane Lambert not getting the puck up high enough with Liut down.
Never got a shot on goal, and then St. Louis right back down the ice.
There was no mistake on this. One pass, the defenseman played it perfect. Stefan made the save. The puck comes back out to Delorme. He got all of it. But a perfect shot Stefan making the first save. Greg Stefan covering in front of the net, but Delorme's shot was right on the target.
Babbage draws the assist on the goal. Colin Campbell moved in. His shot was blocked, broke his stick, and the Blues pick up the loose puck and head back with Bothwell at center ice. Bothwell driving it back into the Detroit zone. A race after it and an icing call as it's touched by Colin Campbell. So the Blues lead it 1-0. We'll be back in a moment.
First scoring opportunity, a play coming across with Liut out of position. Detroit was not given credit for a shot on net.
Well, they were now, because they just dumped a couple up there.
Right. That puck was really going to go in, and Liut hit his leg pad. Had it been a little higher...
but that power play continues to hurt the Wings because they really weren't all that dangerous on it.
They're not shooting the puck from the points, and that's where they have to get it back to the Larsons and Parks and get fellas out in front of Liut and do a little screening.
Face off in the circle to the right side of the St. Louis goal. Duguay and Gilmour waved down to the face-off circle, so Yzerman comes in against Mark Reeds. Yzerman won the draw, but it went through Obrodnik and comes out center ice. Larson ties his man up there. Reed Larson's pass didn't get through, and the Blues will take it to the Detroit zone. Now they carry it into the Red Wing end. Here's Reeds turning with it, and Obrodnik came in, tipped it away from him, and Yzerman picks it up and heads back. Steve Yzerman just lifting it out center ice. Ramage knocks it down, cleared it over on the left wing. There's Gilmour with a drive that went wide of the net. Reeds played it in behind the goal, a centering pass, and they score! Pettersson! And it's 2-0.
Well, there's no excuse for this goal. Detroit were just caught flat-footed. The puck went around behind the net. Nobody challenging the puck carrier at all, and then finally the play comes out to Pettersson. He just drifted in through the middle. Nobody, two players there, but nobody knocked the puck away from him. Pettersson's up number 22, walked right in through the middle. Two quick goals. Now we'll find out what the Wings are made of. They were hoping to go after St. Louis early in this game, but here they find themselves down by 2 with just a matter of 4 minutes gone.
Mark Reed made the play to him. Gilmour drew the other assist. 4:01. The goal coming less than a minute after Delorme's opening goal. Pettersson gets his second of the series. Now the play back into the Detroit zone. Bob Mano. The head now to Campbell. Colin Campbell out at center ice. Drove a long shot. Liut juggled that a bit. And the Wings maybe going to have to start shooting it from outside because this guy covers up in close. And now we've got to struggle in behind the net again. We had a lot of this going on last night.
Well, Liut during the season, Bruce, missed a lot of shots from 60 and 70 feet, and that's why really on the power play I can't figure out the Wings not shooting from the point man.
Gilmour and Red Wing player Mano were bumping one another in behind the goal.
Liut did not drop the puck, and that's what caused this. He was going to put it down, and then first thing you know, there's a little skirmish starts behind the net. No penalties being called.
So Delorme from Babbage at 3:13, and then Pettersson from Reeds and Gilmour at 4:01. Each team with 3 shots in goal, but I will not blame Greg Stefan for either of the 2 goals they scored.
Not at all. He made the save on Babbage's shot. Delorme just came in and picked up what was there and really rifled it home, and I'm sure that Greg never saw Delorme's shot at all. The second goal, Pettersson's goal, nobody picked up Pettersson. He floated it right in through the middle, picked up the puck. There were 2 players right there actually in contact with him, but he put it in the net.
So the Wings quickly down by 2. Puck stayed in the St. Louis zone. Ogrodnik took it off the boards, turns it in along the circle. John Ogrodnik brought it out in front. Here's Ogrodnik, and he ran into Yzerman. Now Ogrodnik hands it off in the circle to Duguay, and he took the shot knocked down in front of the net. And the Blues pick it up and head back out. At center ice, Greg Smith takes it away ahead to Duguay. It bounced off his stick. Now the Blues cleared it center ice. Reeds over the line to Pettersson. Pettersson drops it off for Gilmour. Gilmour tried to work in. Joe Patterson ends up with a puck for Detroit. Swings it up on the right wing now to Duguay. Ron Duguay out at center ice. Lifted it to the St. Louis blue line, and the Blues will bring it right back with Pettersson. Charging into the Detroit zone. Turned around by Brad Park. It comes again to center ice. Now the Blues, Ramage has it there. Ramage shot it ahead. Babbage chases it into the corner, being tied up by Greg Smith. Babbage trying to get it loose. Smith and he go in along the boards. Federico gets into it. So does Blake Dunlop. They continue to hammer away at it. Greg Smith has lost his stick. Now the Blues' Babbage got control of it, and Mano knocked it away from him and scoops it out to center ice. Nearing the 6-minute mark of the first period, 2-0 St. Louis. The Blues have the play in the Detroit zone. Dunlop tipped it up the left side, but it's held in by Ramage with a drive, and Stefan kicked that one away. Now Brad Park into the corner. Federico checking him, but Park works it ahead for Duguay. And Duguay just bounces it back into the St. Louis end. There'll be an icing call against the Red Wings, and the Blues have come out and applied the early pressure.
Oh, they have Detroit backed in and not playing the way they can play.
2-0 St. Louis leads. We'll be back in a moment. Referee is Dave Newell, Ray Scapanello, Randy Mitten, the 2 linesmen. Wings have had the only power play opportunity thus far in the game, but the St. Louis Blues have the 2 goals. Randy Ladouceur trying to work it away from Gilmour, played it into the corner. Larson went in after it, but didn't get it out, and Pichette drove a shot, a bouncing puck. And Stefan had to handle that one off to the side of the goal.
Detroit just appears as though they're in a state of shock. They're not helping one another in their own zone. This puck was given right out to the Pichette at the point. His shot deflected, and Stefan had to be very alert to get that one.
The Wings have Dunlop, Grodnik, and Duguay out now with Ladouceur and Larson. Gilmour, Pettersson, and Reeds, the forward line for St. Louis. Ramage and Johnson. Play to the right side of the Detroit goal. Puck came back now to Pettersson with a drive, and Stefan got in front of that to kick it away. Ladouceur played it up the left side. John Grodnik sent it back of his own goal again to Larson. A right wing pass for Duguay. Duguay's pass knocked down center ice by Reeds, and the Blues are on the puck right now. Pettersson drops it off for Gilmour. He flipped it into the corner. Dunlop banged in along the boards by Reeds. Larson gets it loose. A bouncing puck. Here now is Duguay. He couldn't work it out. It stays deep in the Detroit zone. The Wings are not getting on it. Into the corner, Pettersson. Pettersson trying to work away from Dunlop. Larson there. Larson tied him up, but Pettersson comes out with a puck. Larson lost his stick. Larson took him into the corner, knocked him down, but now it's in behind the Detroit goal. Ladouceur finally tipped it away, and there's going to be a penalty coming up as the Red Wing player, Ladouceur, I believe, is going to go off. And now St. Louis with a 2-goal lead will have the extra man, and we'll be back with the Blues power play. Let's pause first for this.
In the hard-hitting game of hockey, you need all the protection you can get. Cooperall from Cooper. On the outside, it's a great new look. And on the inside, it gives you freedom of movement and a comfortable fit. Cooperall protects where you need it most. Specially shaped lightweight pads protect thighs, hips, kidneys, and tailbone. And when we protect you better, you can play better. Cooperall. Another reason the world plays hockey with Cooper.
It just must appear as though there are too many Blue players out there. Ladouceur grabbed the player, knocked him down, wound up getting a holding penalty. But the Blues are putting so much pressure on the Wings, they just can't get a hold of it in their own zone.
Now Dunlop in against Federico. Puck hit with a high stick. Blues continue to play it, though, and Mano intercepts, clears it ahead, and that was just too far for Dunlop. Slides back into the St. Louis zone, and Pichette retreats in behind his own net. Dave Pichette of St. Louis. Ladouceur off for holding at 7:15. The Blues lead by 2 as Federico comes out to lead the power play. A bouncing puck into the corner, and here's Babbage going in after it. Put it out in front. It comes back to the line for Pichette. Pichette turns with it. Now Dave Pichette held it at the blue line, drove it into the corner. Babbage goes in. Colin Campbell fell down. Babbage off to the side of the net along the boards to Federico. Sutter gave it right back to Federico, the rim of the circle. Now Bernie Federico skates it into the circle. It was knocked away and cleared back out center ice as Federico just took a little too much time. 1:10 remaining now on the Detroit penalty. Pichette of St. Louis winding up again, coming out center ice over the line into the Detroit zone. Chases it into the corner. Now Pichette handed it back to Sutter. Sutter drove it in behind the Detroit goal. Federico checked there by Colin Campbell. A good defensive move by Campbell. He banged it ahead, knocked down at the line, but Duguay digs it away. Ron Duguay turns it back to his own blue line. Duguay away from Bernie Federico and then lifts the puck into the St. Louis zone. Eating up precious time, and now Ramage heads back. Here is Rob Ramage. A left side pass to Pichette. Pichette heads to the corner. Colin Campbell, and he bumped there, and again Campbell took his man off the puck, but it's held in by Federko. Bernie Federko sent it back on the line. Vasilevsky faked the shot, then he drove it, and it went just wide. Mano took it off the boards and backhands it the length of the ice. 20 seconds left in the Detroit penalty. We've 11 minutes to play in the first period. St. Louis leads it 2-0. Right back down the ice, Vasilevsky driving it into the Detroit zone. Off to the side of the net. Stefan came out of the goal to tip it away, but the Blues have possession now. Vasilevsky. Reed Larson took him in along the boards, but the Blues have it. Here's Schofield putting it right to the goal mouth, and Stefan tipped it off the stick of the St. Louis player, Chouinard. Now the penalty is over. The Wings back at full strength, and Danny Gare sends it up the left side to Ladouceur. Randy Ladouceur drives it deep into the St. Louis zone, and Pettersson takes it off the boards. Knocked away from him by Larson, so covering up is Ramage. Schofield hands it back to Pettersson. It skipped away from him, and Larson feeds it now to Yzerman, and he couldn't get loose. And the Wings just not having anything go for them right now. Stefan in behind his own net, stops it there for Greg Smith. Here now Reed Larson. His pass off a St. Louis skate went back into the Detroit zone, offside. Well, congratulations are certainly in order this day to the John Ogrodnik family, Sid.
Yes.
John and Betty Ann, proud parents of a new daughter.
Right, last night or early this morning, I guess it was. 7 pounds, 7 ounces, I believe.
Kelsey Ann. Saturday afternoon at 2:30, tune in for USFL action when the Oklahoma Outlaws challenge the Michigan Panthers live from Tulsa, Saturday 2:30, Channel 50. Now the Wings put the puck back into the St. Louis zone. Bothwell in behind his own goal, being chased there by Pierre Aubry. Bothwell sent it back of his net a second time. Delorme played it back to Bothwell, and Joe Patterson bumped the St. Louis player, then he was hauled down. Puck didn't come out. Yzerman held it in. Here now Joe Patterson. Patterson turned it into the corner. Yzerman trying to dig it loose. He's pinned in along the boards by Bothwell, who is handling him. Yzerman got it loose a second time, and Bothwell stayed right with him and hauled him down.
Oh, boy.
And the Red Wings are going to pick up an icing call against St. Louis. And if that's not holding.
No, Steve Yzerman is looking around as though give him a last sou, because he didn't get a chance to make a play. He worked his way out with a puck, but Bothwell was draped all over him.
So an icing call against the St. Louis Blues will bring the face-off back to circle to the right side of the St. Louis net. Randy Mitten, one of the linesmen, was nicked. And he goes over to the St. Louis bench to get a little attention there from the St. Louis trainer, which, again, gives us an opportunity to say congratulations to Betty Ann and John Ogrodnik on the birth of Kelsey Ann.
Their first child, and John was really excited.
I think you and I had him convinced last night
yes.
That if it was a boy, it might be Sidney Bruce. There's John.
He was handing out the cigars today.
Now Kelly, Kissio, Lambert, and Bolderev, the forward line of the Red Wings. Ladouceur and Larson. Buck came back to Bolderev with a drive, and it hit somebody out in front and knocked away. Right back down the ice now is Sutter. Sutter feeds it back into the Detroit zone, a race after it. Danny Gare couldn't get there, so there's no icing. It went right out in front of the Detroit goal, but Foster steers it ahead to Mano. Bob Mano and Gare. Gare carries over the line, drops it back for Mano. And Gare was bumped heavily in along the boards, and Sutter will bring it right back to St. Louis. Here's Sutter, carrying to the Detroit blue line, drops it off for Federko. Bernie Federko, he's knocked down. Now the Red Wings will bring it back. Foster up the left side to Mano. Mano bumped off the puck by Ramage. It went back into the Detroit zone on a delayed offside. The Wings shoot it back out. And John Barrett fires it back into the St. Louis zone. Terry Johnson heads after it. We've 8 minutes and 35 seconds to play here in the first period. 2-0 for St. Louis. A bouncing puck back into the Detroit end. Stefan cleared it away. Up the left side to Ogrodnik. Center ice to Yzerman. Steve Yzerman pulled away from Gilmour, and then he's bumped heavily to the ice by Rick Wilson. And the Blues lost it at the line to Brad Park. Here now it's taken again by Vasilevsky, and Greg Smith really upended him, and they're hitting one another. Deep in his own zone, Yzerman. Steve Yzerman heads back now for Detroit. Up the left wing to Ogrodnik. John Ogrodnik driving it deep into the St. Louis zone. In behind the net, Duguay plays it back to Greg Smith with a shot, and that was drilled just wide. Now John Ogrodnik laid it in behind the net again. Yzerman trying to pull loose, couldn't do it. Now it's dug away by Duguay, back on the line. It bounced out center ice, and Duguay comes quickly back after it. Little short pass to Steve Yzerman. Yzerman trying to work back in. He did, but he was turned around, and the puck again driven center ice. The Wings starting to apply a little pressure now. Here is Brad Park clearing it ahead to Duguay. Ron Duguay turned it all the way back toward his own line. Duguay pulls away from Gilmour into the St. Louis zone. Duguay drove it into the corner. Ivan Boldarev sent it in behind the goal. It bounced into the corner a second time. Duguay goes in after it, given a bump by Schofield, and the Blues will bring it out center ice. Here now is Mark Reeds. Reeds carrying to the Detroit line. Greg Smith slowed him up. Reeds continued to hold it, and Kissio came back to take it away. Kelly Kissio lays it back to the St. Louis blue line, and Bothwell hands it there to Delorme. Teams changing quickly on the move. Puck fired in behind the Detroit goal. Brad Park. And the St. Louis player colliding out in front of the net. That was Perry Anderson. The Wings bring it back into the St. Louis zone. Anderson made a run at Lambert. Now here's Wickenheiser. Chased back into his own end by Lane Lambert. Laid it in behind his own net up on the left side now. Bothwell clears it ahead, and Pat Hickey. A long pass too far out in front of Wickenheiser. It'll be played by Greg Stefan. A penalty coming up to Greg Smith as he upended the St. Louis player. He'll go off. So Detroit trailing 2-0 faces another St. Louis power play. We'll be back with that in just a moment. My goodness, what is happening to the... Oh, the puck right out in front of the Detroit goal. Deflected into the corner. I started to say to the Buffalo Sabres. They looked at first place all wrapped up in their division. Lost it in the last part of the season. Here's a bouncing puck still in the Detroit zone. Golfed by Babbage, and then cleared back out center ice by Ladouceur. Last night, the Quebec Nordiques went right into Buffalo and beat them in the first game, and Quebec leads them in Buffalo 4-0 in the second period again tonight. Sabres having their problems. Puck driven in behind the St. Louis goal. 1 minute and 20 seconds remaining in the interference call to Greg Smith. He went off at 13:25. Now the Blues dump it back into the Detroit end. Blake Dunlop fired it along the boards. Came back to the line, and Ramage held it in there. Sutter cleared it into the corner, going in after it. Ladouceur. Randy Ladouceur lifted it, not out. It's held in. Comes back to Chouinard at the blue line. Chouinard dumped it off to the side of the Detroit goal. Federko has it there, put it out in front. Knocked away by Mano. And Stefan came out of the goal and fired up into the crowd. He didn't make any mistake with this one.
No.
Let's take 5 seconds right now for station identification.
This is WKBD TV 50 Detroit.
Will stay to the left side of the Detroit goal.
Well, Detroit cannot afford to give up another goal at this stage of the game. 2-0. If they can get things going, they can get right back in this hockey game. But St. Louis, it's just been all St. Louis. Continuous pressure. The Wings making mistakes in deep.
They've outshot Detroit 8-3. This time, though, Blake Dunlop takes it away, bangs it off the boards, back to the St. Louis zone. Pichette comes back after it. 45 seconds left in Smith's penalty. St. Louis with the extra man. Now Dave Pichette flipped it into the corner, and Pettersson, the first man in after it. In behind the net, but it went loose in the corner. Mano didn't get it out. Here's Pichette holding it in. Now Pichette being watched closely by Mano. Sent it off the circle. It goes into the corner. Larson in after it. It's knocked away. Still, the Blues take control. Fazlowski back on the line to Rick Wilson. Back to Fazlowski. A driving shot by Pettersson deflected into the corner. Pichette flipped one from the blue line that deflected wide of the Detroit goal. Here's Pettersson again. Good power play by St. Louis. Finally, Larson picks it up, and he drove it up into the crowd.
They're moving the puck around and getting scoring opportunities, getting Detroit out of position. The Wings power play, the first attempt here in the game, didn't get a shot on net. But Greg Stefan having to come out and cut an angle. Very fortunate. Pettersson's shot was a little wide open side of the net, but Greg playing the angle real well.
4 minutes and 43 seconds remaining to be played here in the first period. 8 seconds left in the Detroit penalty. St. Louis leads it 2-0. The goal at 3:13. Then 48 seconds later at 4:01. 2-0 St. Louis. Puck was dropped. They whistled it down. We'll go through it again.
Mike Liut's going to be wondering where those red shirts are. They haven't been over the St. Louis blue line very often, and he's only had three shots to handle, and that was early in the period.
Last night, the Red Wings carried the play to him in the first period. Now Colin Campbell worked it ahead, but not out. Held in by Gilmour. A return pass to Gilmour. Hit the side of the goal. It came out in front, and Mano has it. The penalty is over. And Bob Mano flips the puck back into the St. Louis end. They're going to, no, yes, they are going to call it icing as Delorme is back to touch it, and the play will come back into the Detroit end. But the Red Wings hold off 2 straight or consecutive St. Louis power plays.
Very good job of killing the penalty, but the Wings are not talking to one another, Bruce. They are not together, because there was a case that Bob Mano, after knowing that Greg Smith had come out of the penalty box, come out over his own blue line and took a look at Greg and then decided to shoot it down the ice, and that brings the face-off deep into Detroit zone again.
Face off to the left of the Red Wing goal. The shots in goal, 9 for St. Louis and 3 for Detroit. It was 3-3 a little while ago. Larry Adderley's going to bring you up to date on the other scores, and there are some interesting ones on the board here. Off to the side of his own goal now is Greg Smith, in behind the Detroit net. Brad Park up the right side for John Ogrodnik. Now Ogrodnik heads out over the line, drove a long shot. Liut stopped it to the side of the net. And the Blues Ramage, a left wing pass for Pettersson. Jorgen Pettersson with his 2nd goal in the series. Plays it ahead, it's sent out center ice. Here's Gilmour. Gilmour flipped it into the Detroit zone, and Greg Smith comes back after it. Smith played it up the left wing. Ogrodnik didn't get it out. Gilmour held it in. Gilmour drives it into the corner, so Smith goes in after it again. Now Greg Smith lost it, taken away by Gilmour. Pettersson sends it back on the line. A shot by Ramage, knocked down by Brad Park, and Park clears it ahead. Too far for Duguay. And the Blues just shoot it right back into the Detroit end. They whistled off the icing. So Greg Smith, without a stick, is going to play it. And as he gloved it ahead to Brad Park, the play is whistled down. But I think they're wondering why there wasn't an icing call. We have a pause in the action. It is 2-0 St. Louis, and we'll be back in a moment. Face off to the left side of the Detroit goal. 3.5 minutes to play here in the first period. 2-0 for the St. Louis Blues. Ivan Boldarev now moves in against Hickey. Deep in the Detroit zone. Dunlop had been waved out of the face-off circle. So too had Perry Anderson. Oh, a loose puck right out in front, and what a save made that time by Greg Stefan. They still scramble away at it in behind the goal. Now we've got everybody going at it. Greg Stefan made a tremendous save.
There's a case, though. Detroit won the face-off and put the puck right on the St. Louis player's stick, and he had the whole net to put it in. Greg Stefan just threw himself back.
In behind the goal, it was Greg Smith, and now Lane Lambert and Delorme.
Oh, and Delorme's a big boy, but can Lambert ever throw those punches?
Lambert has lost his helmet, but the two of them, and now it's Delorme landing the right hand, and Lambert came back with one of his own, and Delorme sends Lambert to the ice, swinging away. Well, I think we're going to have one of these nights.
Yes, it looks like it. This isn't going to hurt the Red Wings, Bruce, because Detroit has not played a lick here in the first period, and it takes 60 minutes for a hockey game. They'll get their act together.
Well, the crowd up and cheering Delorme. He won the latter half of the fight. As Lambert heads to the dressing room, Delorme will too, and we shall have offsetting major penalties. Well, we mentioned a lot of interesting results out of town. While we sort out penalties, let's check those with Larry Adderley.
Bruce, a couple of visiting teams faring better than the Wings are here in the arena in St. Louis. Montreal is in Boston in an Adams Division game, and it's Montreal leading Boston by a score of 2-1. Quebec also a visitor, 4-2 on Buffalo, but you see the Sabres have come back some in the second period. The Rangers again have scored the first goal against the Islanders, but the Islanders won last night. Philadelphia and Washington deadlocked at 2-2 in the second period. The Chicago-Minnesota game, no score, just underway like this one here in St. Louis. And later tonight, it's Winnipeg at Edmonton, Vancouver at Calgary in the other games being played tonight. So far, it's the Blues on top of the Wings 2-0. Let's go back to Bruce and Sid.
Well, they have just offsetting penalties by the looks of it. Referee Dave Newell discussing the situation with the St. Louis captain Sutter. Brian Sutter, here they are. Stefan made just an outstanding save just prior to the breakout of the fight.
But talk about a miscue. The puck come across and was sent right back over to the open side, and Hickey there by himself, and Hickey come close to knocking it back in the net, even from behind the net. That's where all the little pushing started.
Now we're back to the live action as the play is right along the Detroit blue line. Reed Larson hands it there to Randy Ladouceur. The Wings changing on the move and couldn't play the puck. Comes back into the Detroit zone. In behind his own goal, Reed Larson's pass didn't come out. He was checked by Anderson. Larson picks it up a second time ahead to Duguay. Out at center ice to Yzerman. He's got Ogrodnik on the move. Here's Ogrodnik going in with a drive. And, oh, he didn't know where it was. Mike Liut made the save, looked into the net.
And John Ogrodnik showing his speed. Johnny O can really pick him up and put him down.
Mike Liut turned around, looked to the net.
He took the perfect pass. He was being checked from behind. He got a good shot away, but Liut just stayed right with it. Fell back down. A perfect pass to John. He was in behind the defense, but was being interfered with and really pulled at, but he got his shot away. Liut made his first big save of the game. Only Detroit's 5th shot on net.
So the face-off remains in the circle to the right side of the St. Louis goal. Boy, the Wings could use one here. They trail by 2. Kissio goes in against Gilmour to the right side of the St. Louis net. Obrey and Boldarev, the other 2 Detroit forwards. The Blues, though, win the draw, and in behind his own goal is Ramage. Quick change from the Detroit bench as Gare and Mano come on. Puck dumped deep into the Detroit zone. Going into the corner, Babbage, but it's tipped away by Ladouceur. Coming out now is Larson. Here is Reed Larson over the line. Knocked away there, though, on the Blues. Babbage didn't get it loose to Federko. Larson knocked it away. Shot it back into the St. Louis zone. Terry Johnson played it in behind the net. It goes to the corner. Bob Mano held it in. And he was tied up, and Babbage tries the other side. Colin Campbell moved in to hold it there. Dwight Foster took a whack along the boards from Johnson. They still struggle. Danny Gare in the middle of it all. Foster went in and knocked the player down. The referee has stopped it. And Danny Gare, well, I believe it's Ramage over there in the corner.
Ramage or Johnson.
It is Johnson.
The Blues have really been using the body and getting away with quite a bit, but they come out here ready to go.
Dwight Foster is holding off the St. Louis player, and Mr. Foster should stay away from this sort of thing.
Because he definitely has a bad shoulder, but trying to get by tonight.
The third game of the playoffs between the Detroit Red Wings and St. Louis will be Saturday at 8 o'clock at the Joe Louis Arena. Fourth game, if needed, will be at the Joe Louis Arena Sunday at 8 o'clock. There are some tickets still remaining for each of these 2 games. And the tickets are sold only at the Joe Louis Arena. You can charge tickets by telephone if you'd like to at 567-9800. 567-9800. And as we say, a few are still remaining. So you can check the Joe Louis Arena. Offsetting penalties again, not offsetting. Each team will be short a man.
Danny Gare and Johnson from St. Louis.
Red Wings' 4th penalty. St. Louis is 3rd. This one comes at 17 minutes and 41 seconds. Roughing to the 2 of them, Johnson and Gare. Two 2-0, St. Louis leads. Each team now will be playing short a man. Steve Yzerman and John Ogrodnik come out. The 2 Detroit forwards with Campbell and Barrett. And the Blues have Reeds and Gilmour, 2 youngsters. Puck went back into the St. Louis zone. Ramage plays it in behind his own goal. Rob Ramage holding it back of his own net. Hands it back now to Bothwell, sending it center ice. Here's Reeds. Mark Reeds charging over the line. A drop pass for Gilmour. Gilmour takes it in toward the corner, put it out in front. Coming in was Barrett to tip it away from Reeds. A long shot. Stefan blocks that from the blue line, and Yzerman clears it ahead for Ogrodnik. It skipped off the stick. Evidently not, because they're going to call it icing as Ramage touches it, and it'll come back into the Detroit end with 1:45 to go in the first period. I think the Wings will be happy to see this first period come to an end, go in and regroup.
There's no doubt about that. They're just hoping that they don't give up any more goals here in the first period. It's been a tough period for them. They've been out-bumped, out-skated, and they're very fortunate to be within 2 goals. And 2 goals, the way this game is going to be fairly wide open by all appearances. 2 goals, I don't think, will be the determining factor. If the Wings can score the next goal, we are going to have another great hockey game here.
Now Randy Ladouceur circles in behind his own net. Each team short a man. Dunlop up front with Mano. Here's Dunlop coming out center ice. Blake Dunlop drives a long shot. Federico handles that one. Dunlop heads to the bench, and coming on is Foster. Now Randy Ladouceur held it in with a shot, and that's cleared away by Liut. Ramage off to the side of his own goal, sends it up the right wing, and here's Federico coming out with Sutter on the opposite side. Over the line, Bernie Federico trying to work around Ladouceur, and Ladouceur shoves him to the ice. They go into the corner, bumping one another there. And here now is Foster bringing it back down the ice for Detroit. Dwight Foster dumps it into the corner. Bob Mano chases in with Pichette. Pichette beat him there. And Pichette starts right back for St. Louis. A minute to play here in the first period. Each team short a man for 35 seconds. In behind his own goal, Greg Stefan played the puck up the left side. It didn't come out. Federico back on the line for Wilson. Now Wilson cleared it to the side of the net. Making the check was Randy Ladouceur. Larson goes in after to head now to Foster. Center ice Mano. Three of the wings move out. Here's Reed Larson carrying into the St. Louis zone, handing it back to Foster. And Foster's shot deflected off to the side. Bounced over the stick of Federico, but picking it up now is Wilson. Rick Wilson leads the rush for the Blues. Took the shot from center ice. Stefan handles that. In a couple of seconds, the penalized players will be back. Here the puck stolen by Wickenheiser with a drive over the top of the goal. And it's fired back into the Detroit end offside. They're going to call it an intentional offside. Bring the faceoff back into the St. Louis zone with just 15 seconds remaining.
And I can't recall a game in the last half of the season where the Wings have given up the puck in their own zone as often as they have here in this first period, the second game tonight. And no doubt it's because of the pressure that St. Louis is putting on. St. Louis moving everybody in deep. They appear to be out-skating Detroit.
They've been more physical tonight.
Oh, yes, definitely.
So a big face-off to the right side of the St. Louis goal with just 15 seconds remaining. Yzerman will take the draw. Played it out in front. Boldarev moves in with a shot, and a big save again by Liut. Came back to the blue line. Brad Park held it in there. Fired the puck out in front of the goal. It deflects into the corner. Just 3 seconds to play. And this period comes to an end. With the Detroit Red Wings trailing the St. Louis Blues by a score of 2-0. The goals by Delorme from Babbage at 3:13 and Pettersson from Reeds and Gilmour at 4:01. And in the period, St. Louis outshot Detroit 13-8. We have the in-between period entertainment coming up for you on both radio and television. We'll be back with that. Let's pause first, though, for this. In St. Louis with the second game of the Stanley Cup playoff between the Detroit Red Wings and the St. Louis Blues, and the Blues lead it 2-0. Have a moment right now for our Shell Auto Care scoring summary. The Red Wings got the first power play advantage exactly 1 minute into the first period when Ramage went off for slashing, but Detroit did no damage. And then shortly after the penalty was over, 13 seconds to be exact, Delorme and Babbage came down the ice. Babbage fired a shot. Greg Stefan making his first save of the hockey game, but the rebound came directly out to Gilbert Delorme, and he whistled it home to make it 1-0 St. Louis at 3 minutes and 13 seconds with Babbage drawing the assist. Then less than a minute later at 4:01, 48 seconds later, Reeds and Gilmour assisting Pettersson. Reeds fired the puck out in front, and Pettersson whammed it home for his second goal of the playoffs, and a 2-0 St. Louis Blue lead. From that point on, the Blues continued to carry the play to Detroit, but the Wings held them off, and Detroit outshot 13-8 in that first period. So that's it, our Shell Auto Care scoring summary, finding the St. Louis Blues leading Detroit 2-0. Well, Sid, I am sure that there's some very deep discussion going on in that Detroit dressing room right now, because what the Red Wings don't want to do is go back home trailing 2-0.
No, they have to really come back out and play hockey the way they're capable of playing, Bruce. St. Louis just opened up with all guns firing, really. They threw the puck in and bounced it in.
Steve Lattin
just took the play away from them.
Steve Lattin and Bert Godin of the Red Wing training staff opening the door, allowing the Red Wings to move back down the corridor. And they'll be coming out onto the ice here at the Joe Louis Arena to get the second period going. And
Joe Louis Arena now?
I'll be all right. The arena here in St. Louis, which was the Checker Dome up until this season. And
well, you know,
the team changed hands.
It takes 60 minutes for a hockey game, and there's still 40 to play. So the Wings are not out of this hockey game. They have to play a much stronger game than they did in the first. They were out-muscled and out-skated. And if anything, maybe St. Louis will slacken off a little bit and see if they can sit back on a 2-goal lead and give the Wings a chance to get things going.
We said that after the first period last night, which was a scoreless period, the Red Wings indeed could have been out in front 3-0. And I think in this period, the Blues could have been out 4-0.
Yes, very easily, really.
But they lead it 2-0. The Red Wings have had 4 penalties and the St. Louis Blues 3, but only 1 power play opportunity. No, I'm wrong in that. 2 power play opportunities.
Oh, no power play goal scored.
Nope. Mike Liut, who has been a very steady performer since he came to this club, he has played every single Stanley Cup game the St. Louis Blues have been involved in, 29 of them.
And he is about to erase a record of Glenn Hall's. Glenn Hall played 30-some games. I think 31 playoff games for St. Louis. Mike Liut, no doubt, will break that if the Blues continue to go on here in this series.
The Wings have had 1 power play opportunity. The St. Louis Blues have had 2. We're about to get the second period underway. Gilbert Delorme and Detroit's Lane Lambert will go back into the penalty box with time remaining in their carryover 5-minute major penalties for fighting, called at 16:35. So they'll have 1 minute and 35 seconds of that penalty time remaining, offsetting penalties. And both teams are at full strength as Steve Yzerman comes out with Duguay and John O'Grodnik. Gilmour, Pettersson, and Mark Reed's the forward line for St. Louis, and the second period is underway. The Blues gain possession. It's back on his own blue line for Ramage. Ramage feeds it off to Terry Johnson and ahead, and Gilmour slides it into the Detroit zone, and Pettersson speeds in after it. Now Jorgen Pettersson takes it into the corner, checked there by Yzerman, and Duguay takes it off the boards and heads back for the Wings. Duguay feeds it ahead to Yzerman. Steve Yzerman into the St. Louis zone. Here's Yzerman into the corner now to John O'Grodnik. Took the shot on the angle, knocked away by Liut. And the Blues will bring it back out. It went off the skate of Reed Larson, but picked off by Reeds. They carry it into the Detroit zone. Here's Pettersson. His pass hit the goal post, and it's still bouncing around to the side of the net. Greg Stefan just now picking up his stick, and that was almost a fluke goal. And it hit the inside of the goal post and just barely stayed out. Not really a shot, more of a pass, and now a puck covers 2 lines and a long offside. But boy, was that something.
Well, it just deflected across, Bruce, and it appeared to have it had great beaten, no doubt, and hit the inside of the post and bounced right back out. It was a deflection that Greg reacted to as it went by him, and then even when it bounced up on the air, it did everything but go in again. Very, very fortunate, and they were very fortunate that John O'Grodnik come back. The Wings were caught. One of the defensemen up through center ice.
Now Bothwell slides it back into the Detroit zone. Barrett hustles after it in an icing call against St. Louis. So we play in 1 minute and a second here in the second period. 2-0, St. Louis leads it. Quebec has moved out to a 5-2 lead over the Buffalo Sabres now. And the New York Rangers leading the Islanders 2-0.
Well, you know, Quebec won 6 and tied 1 of the 8 games that they played against Buffalo this season. So I don't imagine Buffalo look forward to meeting them in the playoffs. And here they are, the first 2 games in Buffalo. It looks as though Quebec could possibly walk out of there with a 2-game lead.
Now Bothwell of St. Louis, deep in his own zone, drives it up the left side, broken up by Campbell, and he tipped it back in offside. So the play comes out over the St. Louis blue line. John Barrett and Campbell back along the Detroit defense with Gare, Foster, and Mano up front. 2-0 lead for St. Louis. The goals coming 3:13 and 4:01 of the first period.
I still believe Detroit are going to have to start shooting the puck from their point men or their defensemen, trying to get it on the net, hoping for a screen out in front of Liut. We have not put any pressure on the goaltender at all.
Now here's Federico driving it out to center ice. Sutter picks it up there. Puck tipped away by Gare. Colin Campbell at his own blue line. Knocked away from him, so Barrett will carry it in behind his own goal. Played it up the left side. Bob Mano took the hit there, and Ramage held it in and fired it wide. Now a shot from the blue line by Johnson sailed high and wide. Here's Danny Gare. He's got the puck over the line into the St. Louis zone with a shot, and the save made by Liut as Gare cut in, fired it on the angle. Liut stayed with it. Here's Mano out of the corner. Held it there for Gare. Danny Gare into the circle with a shot. The save made. A bouncing puck, and they score. Danny Gare just kept following up, and the Red Wings are on the board. It's 2-1.
And this is what the Wings needed. Gare picking up a puck in the corner, coming out, taking the shot. Liut made the save. It come right back to Gare. He just followed his own play up. He had Foster standing over in the open side, but he just kept following it up and finally chipped it over Liut's shoulder, bounced it into the net. But Danny Gare, just his drive alone is responsible for this, just following his own play up. Finally bounced it over Liut.
Bob Mano drew the assist. I don't know if there was a second one or not. But at any rate, Danny Gare, just persistent work. And now it's 2-1. The Wings right back into it with a goal at 1:53. Here in the second period. At his own blue line, Greg Smith of the Wings ahead to Boldarev. Here's Ivan Boldarev. Pulled up at the blue line. The puck slipped away from him, and Bothwell heads back for St. Louis. Now Bothwell up the left side off the skate of Wickenheiser, goes into the corner with Hickey in after it. He was tied up along the boards by Greg Smith. On the left wing, Boldarev. His pass knocked away by Hickey. Covering up again was Greg Smith, and now coming out Kissio. Kelly Kissio drives it in behind the St. Louis goal. It goes into the corner. Boldarev in after it. Puck lay there in the corner. Now Hickey will give chase to it. Lambert was knocked down at the blue line. Greg Smith with a shot, and that's knocked away by Liut. The Wings checking now much more in the corners deep in the St. Louis zone. Boldarev and Lambert getting into it. They hold the puck in along the boards, dug away by Boldarev, trying to center it, but he's tied up back of the net. And the Blues pick it up and drive it right into the Detroit bench.
And that just shows, with a little pressure put on in the St. Louis zone, St. Louis will make mistakes.
So nearly 3 minutes have been played here in the second period. St. Louis leads 2-1. We'll be back in a moment. Dick Polano facing in behind the Detroit bench. Face off deep in the St. Louis zone. They moved into the circle too quickly, so we'll go through it again. Detroit now has Joe Pettersson with Dunlop and Aubry up front. Larson and Ladouceur. Here now is Pichette of the Blues going in behind his own goal. Dave Pichette from Quebec midway in the season bounces it out center ice. Larson rather nonchalantly plays it, shot it back in. Pettersson gives chase to it. Joe Pettersson brought it off to the side of the net, ended up in behind the goal, brought it out in front again with a shot, and a good save by Liut. And the Blues come back now up the left side. Schofield had it tipped away by Reed Larson. Larson and Schofield down on the opposite end were pushing at one another. They went back into the Detroit zone. The Wings send it back out. Aubry given a bump, still controls ahead now to Pettersson into the St. Louis zone. Drove a shot wide. Dunlop held it in. Dunlop played it off to the side of the goal. In behind the net, Aubry. Aubry was really decked by Wilson. Wilson kicks the puck loose. And they charge after it. Chouinard. He bounces it back into the Detroit zone. A rolling puck. They waved off the icing, so the Wings' Reed Larson comes back after it. Ahead to Pettersson. Pettersson was checked. Going in Ladouceur. Randy Ladouceur off the side of his own goal to Larson. Larson having trouble with Chouinard. Trying to pull away from him. It comes up the left side, and now a penalty is coming up to St. Louis. The Wings on the delayed call, and now Larson, he and the St. Louis player Schofield over in the corner. Schofield was going to get the penalty, and now Larson drives Schofield to the ice. Now Larson is going to get one too, as he was swinging away at Schofield, but the two of them are in a battle, and the Wings may end up with a power play opportunity, but we can't be too sure of it. The two linesmen in between Schofield and Larson. This started back a little while ago.
Yes, right out in front of the Detroit goal, and the play was in center ice, and they had words, but here's a case where Chouinard got the hook on Larson. Larson made the play. Oh, he threw an elbow in Reed Larson's face. And this is what started it all. Look at, oh, the elbow that Schofield threw. That's where the penalty was coming up, and then Larson's got a bad head because he's holding his...
Can you believe the St. Louis fans up and cheering out there?
Now, that wasn't caused by the fight. That was caused by the original blow, an elbow, and that's when the penalty was going to be called. Then Reed went over and got back into the fight, so he will get a penalty too. But,
yeah, but Schofield will get, I am sure, a little more. Matter of fact, Schofield could get a 5-minute major because Larson has been injured.
Depending if Larson is cut, Bruce, I don't know if he's cut or if
they had a pad. They had a pad up around his forehead.
He is mad, I know that. He has to go to the dressing room. He probably is going for stitches.
It is 2-1. St. Louis leads the game. Referee Newell talking to his linesman now, attempting to sort out the penalties. Schofield is in the penalty box. He was a former Red Wing property.
But Detroit have come out here and played a different second period, but this is after the Schofield will not fight Larson. He turns around and he's just...
Yeah, but Schofield is a fighter.
I know he is, but he has his back to the play. But it's the elbow that hit Larson right as he come around behind the net. There, the elbow right in the face. And that's when the penalty was called.
Well, they sort out the penalties now. We'll be back to tell you what they are. Let's pause first for this. Referee Newell is having a terrible time trying to sort out what penalties to call. He has not made any announcement. Has been talking and talking with his two linesmen. And he's still doing it.
And the players are chipping in what they think should be said over there. Quite a gathering of the clan right over in the little circle by the penalty box. Colin Campbell and Gare were giving it to Schofield in the penalty box.
Okay.
Let's hear the penalties now.
I've got...
This is Newell, the referee.
Larson, 2 minutes for roughing. I've got Schofield, 2 minutes for elbowing, and the match penalty. Deliver attempt.
Well, you heard it. The Red Wings don't get a thing out of it.
Well, they lose. They lose Schofield.
But that's no great loss.
A match penalty, and
Schofield, the Red Wings yelling at him all the way down the ice. He gets a match penalty for deliberate attempt to injure, but that doesn't mean a thing because both of them are going to get 2 minutes.
Well, they will play with 1 man short on their roster. There's that to it. If other things happen here during this game.
Well, they continue to talk, the two captains and the officials out in front of the penalty box area. So while they do, we'll tell you St. Louis leads the game 2-1. We'll be back in just a moment.
JV, you can bank on it. Bank! The bank closes in 5 minutes!
It's not always easy to get to the bank when it's open, but now there's a bank that doesn't keep bankers' hours. Michigan National. You'll find Michigan money machines at Michigan National branch offices all over the state. They're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All you need is a Michigan money card and you'll never have to hurry to the bank again. Michigan National Corporation banks. Even when we're closed, we're open.
St. Louis captain Brian Sutter is doing all the talking with referee Newell. Out in front of the penalty box area, the Wings should be the team a little unhappy with it all.
Yes, and I would think the Wings are concerned as to how long Larson's going to be back in the dressing room. We couldn't see when he skated off. He was holding just above his eye, but it's probably...
Here comes another discussion. He's called the two linesmen in again. They still are talking this situation over. The penalty box doors are open, but neither of the penalized players can go in there because Larson is in the dressing room or the first aid room, and Schofield, given a match penalty for a deliberate attempt to injure, is off the ice and then gone for the rest of the game. Here's Reed Larson heading back, though.
That's good.
Tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, tune in and catch NBA action at its best when the playoff-bound Pistons take on the New York Knicks from New York. Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, WKBD TV 50, your choice for sports in Detroit. Each team will play short a man if we ever get it going again, unless Newell changes his mind. He's still having a big discussion with the two linesmen. And in where he doesn't belong is Brian Sutter. He's inside that spot that's not supposed to be occupied by players, that circle out in front of the penalty box area.
I was just going to say, I hope somebody takes a stick and the gloves and things over to Reed Larson. They finally have delivered those over to him. Brad Park handing him his helmet, his hockey gloves, and a stick.
Now they've given 5 minutes to Schofield. That makes more sense.
You've got Barclay Plager, the assistant coach, up really going. Demers.
So Schofield gets 2 for elbowing and 5 now. All has been confusion here. The crowd very, very unhappy.
Now he's over explaining to Demers, the coach, just what the reason for the foul. If I could get my rule book, I could probably start looking this up.
Well, you said that Plager was really given to him. Demers is unhappy.
Yeah.
Barkley Plager is yelling. Demers just holds up his hand and says, okay. So the Red Wings and the St. Louis Blues will each be short a man for 2 minutes. Then when Larson comes back on, there will 5 minutes will remain in the penalty to Schofield. Let's check the out-of-town scoreboard right now with Larry Adderley.
Bruce, in the Adams division, Montreal leads Boston 2-1. That's now in the third period. It's Quebec on top, Buffalo 5-2, also in the third period. Patrick division semifinals. The Rangers have a 2-0 lead over the Islanders in the second. Philadelphia and Washington deadlocked 2-2. That is third period now. Chicago and Minnesota, the North Stars up 2-0 in the first period. And underway finally in the Smythe division, the Winnipeg, Edmonton, and Vancouver, Calgary games. Bruce?
Thank you, Larry.
I have this now, Bruce. This rule, the match penalty, a 5-minute match penalty to Schofield, was called under Rule 44. A match penalty shall be imposed on any player who deliberately attempts to injure an opponent, and the circumstances shall be reported to the president for further action. A substitute for the penalized player shall be permitted at the end of the 5th minute.
Now, the peculiar thing is on the board, they have a 5-minute penalty and a 2-minute penalty up there together, which means that after the 1 penalty is over, there will be just 3 minutes remaining in Schofield's major penalty, and that doesn't make much sense.
No, that's not right.
So all is confusion here now.
Even when this, because of this match penalty, the player shall automatically be suspended from further competition until the president has ruled on the circumstances. So it's very possible that this player will be sitting out for a while.
They've got to put up 7 minutes, I would think, on the penalty clock here, and they have 5 and 2, and that'll all run off together, so that when the 2 minutes is up, only 3 will be remaining in the 5-minute penalty. But he drew back-to-back 2 minutes and 5-minute penalties. So that elbow thrown at Reed Larson. One good thing about Mr. Newell's indecision is the fact that Larson has had sufficient time to recover.
They have changed the clock now, Bruce. Now they got it 7.
Yep. Okay, I guess we're about to get going again. It is still 2-1. We've played a little less than, or just a touch more than 4 minutes. The Red Wings have outshot St. Louis 6-1.
This may have cooled them down, though. They really had the pressure on.
So we get going now here in the second period. Each team short a man as Terry Johnson has the play back in his own zone. Here is Johnson starting up the left side. Johnson turns away from Brad Park's check, carries back into his own zone. Rob Ramage up the left side to Gilmour into the Detroit zone. Gilmour lost it there, knocked down by Greg Smith, and now Yzerman heads back. Yzerman, his pass ahead to Bolderev off the skate of Brad Park, ahead though to Yzerman into the St. Louis zone. He pulled it back, hands it back now to Greg Smith. Smith didn't take the shot, just took it in toward the corner. Smith being bumped in along the boards there and lost the puck, and Ramage will take it. Now it's cleared by Johnson of St. Louis out to center ice. Pettersson has it there. Jorgen Pettersson into the Detroit zone. They go into the corner after it, in behind the Detroit goal, Yzerman. Yzerman put it right on the stick of Ramage with a drive, and he sailed it wide. Now Johnson from the blue line, another shot deflected in behind the Detroit goal. Brad Park digs it out of the corner. Now Park will head out. Here's Park coming out center ice. Each team short a man for 50 seconds. And the Park over on the wrong, or the pass on the wrong wing. Yzerman controlled it. Gives it back to Park with a drive, and Liut stopped that. Now the Blues bounce the puck back into the Detroit zone. A race after it. Gilmour and Greg Smith. Smith gets there first, and the icing call is against St. Louis, and now Gilmour and Smith threaten to go at one another.
Oh, we're going to have one of these nights where every time someone's checked, there's going to be a little...
No, but what Detroit wants to do now is stay on the ice, because in 38 seconds they have a 5-minute power play coming up.
And St. Louis will be trying to get a penalty to get somebody off of there. This is where composure means so much now to these hockey players.
This is a far different game than we saw last night. Last night was just a good up-and-down, solid, hard-hitting hockey game. Tonight it's been very, very chippy. Plays that shouldn't have occurred.
But how do you account for hockey games, Bruce? The first period was all St. Louis Blues. St. Louis were doing the skating. They did the bumping. They had Detroit backed up, and they scored their 2 goals. Here in the second period now, the Wings have outshot them 8-1. And it's been Detroit that have controlled the play.
And the Blues have been frustrated. We've played only 5.5 minutes of the second period. We may be here for a while yet. Now in 38 seconds, Reed Larson is due back on, and the Red Wings will then have a power play opportunity. Dwight Foster, Danny Gare up front now with Campbell and Ladouceur. Pettersson, he and Sutter, the two forwards for the Blues. Now Foster knocked it away in the corner. Bothwell goes in behind his own net again. Plays it there, and Delorme heads out. Here's Gilbert Delorme coming out center ice ahead to Pettersson. Bernie Pettersson into the Detroit zone. Pettersson takes it into the corner. Pettersson put it to the side of the Detroit goal. Picked it up in behind the net. Checked there by Colin Campbell. And Danny Gare digs it away. Gare sends it ahead now to Foster out at center ice off the skate of Ladouceur. He tipped it into the St. Louis zone. 5 seconds. The Red Wing penalty will be over. Here's Pettersson digging back into the Detroit zone. Ladouceur tipped it away from him. Now the Wings trying to work it out of their own zone. Didn't do it, and Ladouceur came in. Ladouceur's going to get a penalty. Oh, he hauled Pettersson down to the side of the net. I don't think he was trying to do it, but he just got tangled up with him, and boy, that hurts.
This is a bad penalty to take. This is a case where the Wings are a little careless, though, on their own end, letting Pettersson get in along the boards. Then Ladouceur forced to put his arm around his shoulders, give him a little tug.
And it is a penalty you know has to be called.
Well,
Well, he did. He
threw him down. There's no doubt about it.
A holding call to Randy Ladouceur at 6:14, just as Reed Larson was coming back onto the ice.
Well, that takes the sting out of the 5-minute advantage the Wings were going to have.
Referee Newell, a little unhappy, skated over to the Detroit bench and said, "Get somebody out here." So now both teams will be short again. Ladouceur with the 2-minute penalty for holding at 6:14. 4 minutes and 53 seconds remaining in the penalty to Schofield. All of which means if neither team scores and the Red Wings and the Blues can stay out of the penalty box, Detroit will still have an extra man for 2 minutes and 53 seconds after Ladouceur's penalty is over. Now here's Brad Park in behind his own goal. Park in behind Stefan, clears it up the left side to Greg Smith. Smith again carries his pass to John Ogrodnik into the St. Louis zone, and he dropped it back, and Chouinard was there to take it away. Guy Chouinard to the Blues. Off to Pichette. Dave Pichette ahead. Rick Wilson carried into the Detroit zone. It was held in. A bouncing puck. Still around the Detroit goal, but Yzerman swings it in behind his own net. Up the left wing to Ogrodnik. Here is John Ogrodnik with Yzerman coming up with him. Ogrodnik carried to the blue line, broken up by Chouinard. A left side pass to Pettersson. Pettersson with a shot, and Brad Park got a piece of that. It went in behind the Detroit goal. Park goes in after, trying to pull away from Chouinard. Brad Parks being checked by Chouinard. Chouinard came up with a puck. He handed it off to Pettersson, and it was Yzerman that tipped it away. And Brad Park skates it to center ice. Park trying to get loose. Park still turning and twisting in the center ice zone. Plays it ahead to John Ogrodnik. He lost it at the St. Louis line. Puck brought back in by Greg Smith. Here's Smith taking it into the corner. The Wings changing on the move. They lock the puck to the boards, and that'll keep a face-off to the left side of the St. Louis goal. 49 seconds left in Ladouceur's penalty. Been a strange sort of a game.
Yes, it's been the last 2 or 3 minutes has been strange too. Greg Stefan gets knocked around, a lot of dipsy doing, but no one going anywhere. Brad Park run into Greg as he was making a little clearing play behind his own net.
Face-off will stay in the circle to the left side of the St. Louis goal. Gare and Foster now. They're the goal-scoring combination for Detroit. Danny Gare got the goal at 1:53 here in the second period. It is 2-1 St. Louis.
We haven't seen much of Kelly Kissio. Players of that.
Well, there have been so many penalties, you can't get the lines out. Now here's Foster going into the corner, leaving it there for Gare. Gare took a shot on a bad angle. That's knocked away. Cleared to the blue line. Wayne Babbage tied up by John Barrett, but Babbage twists and turns, fired it in behind his own goal. Now it's bowled over by John Barrett. The puck off to the side of the net. Danny Gare dumped it out in front, and it bounced away. Now it's Dwight Foster making the check. Colin Campbell held it in at the blue line. 20 seconds left in the Detroit penalty. Campbell was decked by Babbage. Now the play stays. Now John Barrett ran his man off the puck. Dwight Foster, though, turned around. The Blues try to come out. It was hooked away and comes center ice, and they're 2-on-1. Over the line, Federko. Bernie Federko pulls up at the blue line. Played it over on the right side. Now it's Johnson, or rather Delorme. He was hit along the boards by Colin Campbell. Out of the penalty box, Ladouceur. Wings have the extra man. Ladouceur had it bounce away at center ice. And Johnson is back in his own end. Wings trying to get something organized on the power play. Wickenheiser as a penalty killer. Skating around center ice and then driving it back into the Detroit end. Now Detroit has the extra man for 2.5 minutes. Duguay went chasing after Wickenheiser, but Wickenheiser clears it back to his own blue line, and Johnson has it there. Ramage drives it back into the Detroit zone. The Wings have an extra man for 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Brad Park slows things up in behind his net, trying to get something organized. Barrett is still out on the power play. Now John Barrett, Kissio, Duguay, and Bolderev, and it's broken up again right at the St. Louis blue line, this time by Mark Reeds, who shoots it back into the Detroit zone. So again, Park in behind his own net. 1:55 left in the penalty. Park took a bump from Reeds, but gets the pass away to Yzerman. And Yzerman just drilled it in behind the goal. It hit the glass and goes up into the crowd.
And Detroit are not getting organized at all on this man advantage.
This is a major penalty, which means that if the Red Wings were to score, the man would have to remain in the penalty box.
You got a chance years ago. This is when the Montreal Canadiens used to just put things away. A major penalty, they'd score enough goals to win everything.
Let's take 5 seconds right now. We pause for station identification.
You're watching WKBD TV 50 Detroit.
St. Louis Blues 2, the Detroit Red Wings 1. The Wings have an extra man for 1:45. Yzerman drives it back into the St. Louis zone. It goes in behind the net. Liut tipped it into the corner. Bolderev trying to get to it. Worked it back to Brad Park, and Park couldn't get it. The Blues, though, didn't get it out. Park held it in. Chased it into the corner. Took a bump from Delorme. Puck held in by Kissio. And then the Blues pick it up a second time. Park took his man in along the boards. The puck was loose, but they whistled the play down. So a face-off stays in the St. Louis end.
And there's some real professional bumping going on out there. Really taking pieces of one another. I like to see Ivan Bolderev out on the ice when you have a man advantage, because he handles the puck so well. He can move it around. Brad Park really getting leveled by a big Gilbert Delorme. Kelly Kissio trying to get the puck back out.
Park showing his experience. He slipped the check a little. Now the face-off to the right side of the St. Louis goal. Bouncing around in the circle, kicked into the corner. Kissio bumped Ramage off the puck, sends it back to Yzerman. Steve Yzerman with a long shot, and that's handled by Liut, and the puck driven back into the Detroit zone. Stefan will play it to the side of his own net. Wickenheiser chasing him, and Stefan then sends it into the corner for Yzerman. Up the left side to Kissio, back to Yzerman. Wings have the extra man for just a minute now. It comes out center ice. Brad Park tips it ahead to Duguay. Duguay drives it into the corner in the St. Louis zone, and Liut came out of the net. Didn't play it away. It's held in. Here's Duguay. Into the corner to Brad Park. Park brings it back to the circle. Park lays it back on the line, but that's tipped out center ice by Wickenheiser. Oh, a golden opportunity for the Wings, but they have only 40 seconds remaining. Now on the power play as Yzerman drives it again in behind the St. Louis net. Reeds tried to work it out. Duguay checking him. They take it into the corner deep in the St. Louis zone. Poke away at it. It's tipped in behind the net, and Ramage has it there, and again it's cleared the length of the ice. 20 seconds left in Schofield's major penalty. Brad Park in behind his own net. Ahead to Bolderev. Ivan Bolderev chased in behind his goal now by Hickey. Now Bolderev just left it there for Ladouceur. 5 seconds left. Up the right side to Lane Lambert. It's skipped off of him, and the Blues have it, and the penalty is over. Now here's Gilmour back into the Detroit zone. Here's Gilmour, a pass right out in front. And John O'Grodny came back and tipped it away, and it ends up in the crowd.
Thank goodness the Wings not capitalizing and then getting caught just as the penalty was over, and John O'Grodny had to come back and just tip that puck. This crowd is really making a noise now.
The Wings have outshot them in this period 9-1. But the score doesn't indicate it. It is still 2-1 for St. Louis. The And Detroit's power play, 2 opportunities here. 1 for the better part of 3 minutes, has not shown much.
Had 8 last night, and they scored on the last one, so they are now 1 for 10.
Now here is Bothwell with a drive, and he fired it wide. Mano, a bouncing puck, didn't get it out. Held in by Babbage with a shot wide of the goal. Goes in behind the net. Colin Campbell has his man tied up. It comes back to Bothwell. Here's Bothwell, a pass deflected into the corner. Sutter tried to center it. Barrett covers up on him. Along the boards, Danny Gare tips it ahead, and Bob Mano chases it down the right side. Mano into the St. Louis zone, hands it back to Gare. Danny Gare's shot deflected to the corner. Delorme went in after it, knocked away from him by Mano, but Mano's pass broken up. Now the Blues have Babbage with only Barrett ahead of him. Babbage drilled a long shot and fired it way wide. And Gare tips it back out center ice. The Wings go after it. They hold it right along the boards. Federico had it tipped away. Gare holds it in with Sutter. Still they scramble, and it slides back into the St. Louis zone with Bothwell going in after it. 7 minutes, 50 seconds to play in the second period. 2-1 St. Louis. And the puck driven the length of the ice by St. Louis will indicate icing, and a face-off back into the St. Louis zone. 2-1 the Blues lead. We'll be back in a moment. Bruce Martin along with Sid Abel, Larry Adderley, our producer-director Toby Cunningham here at the St. Louis Arena. The Red Wings have outshot the Blues 9-1 in this second period. After being outshot in the first, here's Reed Larson with a drive, and Liut got to that. And the Blues will pick it up and dump it back out center ice. Larson bumped Anderson off the puck, and Ladouceur comes back after it. Goes in behind his own goal. Randy Ladouceur turning away from Kozlowski's check. Still low deep in the Detroit end. Larson up the right side to Pierre Aubry. Aubry scoops it ahead for Pettersson. Joe Pettersson fired it in behind the St. Louis net, and Liut stops it there for Ramage. Ramage drove it high, and again it was held in, this time by Ladouceur. They go into the corner. Bolderev trying to dig it loose, couldn't do it, and now the Blues come out 3-on-2. Down the left side is Anderson digging into the Detroit zone, and Larson angles them in along the boards. They hold one another there. Ladouceur gets it loose for Aubry. Now Pierre Aubry heads back at center ice. Now Larson and the St. Louis player going at it down in the corner deep in the St. Louis end. And the two of them go to the ice. And I am afraid that's the kind of a night we're going to have all evening long.
There's no doubt about it. The feelings are really running high now, and every time two players come together and get a little shoving going, it's going to wind up in a fight.
Barry Anderson and Reed Larson, the two of them tangling in the corner deep in the Detroit zone. Now they're taking Larson to the dressing room.
They're both going to the dressing room.
Yeah, we have 7 minutes left. So he must be going to dish out 7 minutes in penalties or so.
Well, it's a case of Anderson trying to go inside, and Reed got his arm in front of him, just pushed him along the boards, and then finally took him in pretty good, but they both had their arms around one another. When they got up, Ladouceur got pushed into the fray also, so then Larson and Anderson got started. Reed got a hold of his leg and upended him as though he was in a rodeo.
So 7 minutes apiece. We'll be back with more. Let's pause for this. Offsetting penalties, so each team remains at full strength. The play loose at center ice. Here's John Ogrodnik. Oh, and the play broken up by Pettersson as Duguay was cutting down. Now the Blues carry back into the Detroit zone. Stefan out of the net. Plays a puck to the side of his own goal. Fired it off the boards and is picked off by Yzerman. Steve Yzerman hooked around, and there's a penalty coming up to St. Louis. A drive by Ogrodnik, knocked away by Liut. Now the penalty will be called, and the Red Wings are going to have the power play opportunity as Gilmour will go off for elbowing. So we'll be back with the Detroit power play in a moment.
Steve Yzerman trying to stick handle his way out of the zone with the puck, and Gilmour threw the elbow right up in his face, hauled him down, wound up getting a penalty, giving the Wings now an advantage.
They've been going after Yzerman in these two games, which I guess is the logical thing to do.
Yes, they realize that he is the puck carrier and had a great year, so they're not giving him a chance to get set up at all.
So the Wings, who have not been successful with their power play thus far, have it back in their own zone. Gilmour for elbowing at 13:46. Now up the right side is Bolderev into the St. Louis zone. Ivan Bolderev holds it into the corner. Off the side of the net to Kissio. Back to Bolderev. Bolderev back on the line now to Brad Park. Back to Bolderev off the circle. Ivan Bolderev sends it back to Park. Park didn't take the shot. Now he does. It was knocked down out in front of loose puck. They scramble after it. It's still in the goal crease, and they've whistled it down, and now Kissio, no less, and the St. Louis player are tangling. That's the defenseman Johnson, I believe, and Kelly Kissio's down on top of him. He's not supposed to be doing that.
Well, there was the first real good opportunity that the Wings have had on their power play for putting a screen out in front, and it was Kissio and Lambert that were both out at the top of the goal crease screening Liut. The puck just trickled through. Park's shot was partially deflected.
Kelly Kissio doesn't get many penalties, and this time he really drove after defenseman Johnson.
Well, this is playoff fever for you. The screen is formed out in front, but Brad's shot was partially, well, in fact, it hit Kissio out in front, and Kelly couldn't find the handle. Ivan Bolderev just standing outside the rim trying to put it in.
They won't go up, eh?
So the two of them will go for 5. I guess.
Right. Well, it could be, but I would think
maybe
that was
roughing.
just a little wrestling match. There were no...
Probably roughing. You probably heard it. I couldn't. Roughing calls. 14 minutes and 30 seconds the time of the roughing call, so these penalties offset one another in as much as Detroit has the extra man.
I heard him say when he went over that there must be a malfunction on the big clock, because I heard him say you can't put them up there.
Well, they're not supposed to put them up, Sid,
that's
because
right,
of the one penalty that's been called.
Right.
The rule in the National Hockey League, if a team is short one man and 2 players go off together, they are allowed substitution. So the Red Wings remain at full strength, and the St. Louis Blues short a man for 1 minute and 16 seconds. That's the time left in Gilmour's penalty. Now again, the Blues gain control and drive it back into the Detroit end. And Brad Park will go back after it. Yzerman and Park are playing the points right now, and Ogrodnik, Bolderev, and Lambert up front. Now Yzerman heads out of his own zone, out at center ice. Yzerman again drives it deep into the St. Louis zone. Lambert went in after it, couldn't hold it though, and the Blues again shoot it back to the Detroit line. Yzerman comes back after it. Yzerman played it off a skate. Here's Bolderev back into the St. Louis end. Ivan Bolderev pulls up at the blue line, held in by Yzerman, into the corner with it. Here's Yzerman. He's hauled down, and the Blues will pick up the puck, and it's held in at the moment by Ogrodnik, then driven back into the Detroit end. A half a minute left in the St. Louis penalty. Park turning back in his own zone. We've 4 minutes and 40 seconds to play here in the second period. 2-1 St. Louis. Bolderev moved in again. The puck knocked away out in front, and again backhanded by Ramage back into the Detroit zone, and Pettersson giving chase to Brad Park. Park sends it up the right side for Yzerman. Wings change on the move. A long left side pass. John Ogrodnik knocks it down, carries in. Here's Ogrodnik putting it out in front. It comes back to Yzerman. Yzerman with a drive, and that's blocked, and a rebound sent wide by Ogrodnik. Bolderev put it right out in front. Yzerman turns with it. Back it comes to Greg Smith with a drive. He scores! And the penalty was over, and the Red Wings still have tied the hockey game at 2-2, just as Gilmour came back on.
Well, Greg Smith went upstairs with it on a great play by Yzerman. Yzerman was going to shoot himself and then realized Smith was there facing the right direction. It was defenseman threw himself out in front of it, but went over top of him, right up under the right crossbar in the right post. A great shot by Greg Smith.
Bolderev and Yzerman draw the assist at 15:51 as Greg Smith ties this hockey game, and the Wings have outshot St. Louis 12-1. Now the play goes right back into the St. Louis zone. Dwight Foster digs it out of the corner, put it in behind the net. Pichette has it there. Pichette, he was checked by Mano, didn't work it out. But the Blues will pick it up a second time. Babbage clears it ahead. Now Sutter at center ice. Sutter bounces it into the corner in the Detroit zone. John Barrett in after it. His pass didn't come out. Here's Wilson with a shot deflected wide. Barrett chasing into the corner, gave a bump to the player there, and Foster cleared it ahead for Gare. Too far. It goes back into the St. Louis end. And then Wilson will drive it all the way back into the Detroit zone. Barrett knocks it down, clears it ahead. Now the Blues have it at center ice. Federico lost it. Digging after it now is Mano. Bob Mano has Gare cutting in. He handed the pass to Gare. It deflected into the corner. Going in after it, Colin Campbell. His pass grabbed off to the side of the goal by Liut. And the play is stopped. The game tied, and here we go again. With this time, Colin Campbell and Pichette have a grip on one another. John Barrett, stay out of it. Now it's Pichette and Colin Campbell. They're in a wrestling match off to the side of the St. Louis goal. And the two linesmen who've been busy here tonight get into this one. We may not be out of here before midnight.
I'm glad we're not trying to catch a flight out of here tonight.
The Red Wings just plain lost the first period. They were outshot 13-8. Delorme and Pettersson scored. It was 2-0 St. Louis. But then Danny Gare at 1:53 and Greg Smith at 15:51 have tied the hockey game. And Colin Campbell and Pichette will head into the penalty box now. So while they do, let's check the out-of-town scores again with Larry Adderley.
Bruce, a most interesting game as both teams have apparently decided this playoff hockey is serious and their tempers are right on the edge. 2-2 score here. Elsewhere, out of town, the game's in the third period. Montreal leading Boston 2-1. Quebec ahead of Buffalo 5-2. Quebec threatening to win the first two games on the road. The Rangers still clinging to a 2-0 lead over the Islanders in the third period. And that Washington score now is the Caps 4, Philadelphia 2 in the third period. Chicago has taken a 3-2 lead over Minnesota in the other key game in this Norris division. That's in the second period. Winnipeg scored first against Edmonton in the first period. No score, although it's underway in Calgary, Vancouver, and Calgary. Bruce?
Thank you, Larry. So Campbell and Pichette go off, 5 apiece for fighting. That's 10 penalties aside.
Oh, it's been rugged down there.
Now Bothwell carries in behind his own goal for the Blues. Both teams are at full strength. Puck slides back into the Detroit zone. A race after it, and the St. Louis player was upended. The crowd didn't like that. Pettersson trying to get loose. Came back to Bothwell with a drive. A save made by Stefan. He's lost his stick. It goes in behind the goal. And going in after it, Brad Park, but he ran into the goaltending stick and couldn't work it out. It came back to Bothwell with a shot. Knocked down out in front, a bouncing puck. And Yzerman comes up with it. And Steve Yzerman clears it ahead to Ogrodnik, who drives a shot from center ice. And then Ogrodnik is upended going across the line. He just can't call everything. Won't have time to play the game. Here's Greg Smith. Going in along the boards. Brad Park picks it up. The puck bounced over the glass, ends up in the crowd. 2 minutes and 28 seconds to play in a wild second period.
You made a great statement, Bruce. You can't call everything. I think he could call a penalty every time somebody touches the puck. But Greg Stefan just made the save of the night for the Wings. He a shot that was through a screen, deflected, finally knocked out in front, and oh, this is the play right after the shot because Yzerman came up with this one and moved the puck out through the middle.
So a face-off will stay to the left side of the Detroit goal. A 2-2 tie. Lane Lambert comes out now with Blake Dunlop and Ivan Boulder out. Play to the left side of the Detroit net. Sutter got to the puck. John Barrett tied him up, and Blake Dunlop picks it up and flips it back into the St. Louis zone. Terry Johnson has to hurry after it, and they waved off an icing, and the crowd doesn't agree with that. Here now Johnson heads back center ice to Babbage. Babbage laid it back into the Detroit zone. Lambert races after it. Still no icing, and standing on the pass was Federko. Bob Mano off the boards on the left side, scoops it back to the center ice zone. Now Barrett picks up the loose puck, takes it over the line. He goes digging into the corner with Delorme. Delorme and Barrett bang one another in along the boards. The puck loose. Foster has it. Send it out to Gare with a drive over the side of the goal. Now Gare goes after it again. Played it over on the left side for Bob Mano, and he muscled it into the corner. Now Mano left it there for Foster. Foster tied up by Delorme. And the Blues pick it up. Federko didn't get it out. Gare intercepts. Here's Danny Gare. Gare struggling in the corner with it. Gare played it deeper in the corner. Johnson of St. Louis checked by Gare. The puck to the opposite corner, and Delorme has it. And Delorme scoops it ahead, and Barrett knocked his man off the puck. Here's Foster. Dwight Foster out in front with a drive, and that's grabbed by Liut over the top of the goal. And the checking of the Red Wings is something right now. 13-2 the shots. Well, the third game of the playoffs between the Wings and St. Louis will be Saturday at 8 o'clock at the Joe Louis Arena. And if a fourth game is necessary, that'll be Sunday at 8. And there are still tickets remaining for the 2 games. You can buy one for either of the 2. They are sold only at the Joe Louis Arena. And you can call 567-9800 and charge the tickets if you'd like.
Greg Foster trying to find position to get the puck on the net. Got it a little too high. Liut just deflected it up over the glass.
A minute 16 to go here in the period. The Blues will move it out. Now it's Mark Reeds at center ice. Reeds lost it there. Greg Smith knocked it away. Duguay heads back. Up the left side to Ogrodnik. Ogrodnik around Ramage. Dipped it into the corner. Bothwell went in. Didn't get it out. It bounces back now to Greg Smith. His pass intercepted though. And now Gilmour clears it ahead for Pettersson. Pettersson trying to work by Brad Park. Couldn't do it. Park took it away. And now Duguay ahead to John Ogrodnik. He laid it back into the St. Louis zone. Bothwell goes after it. 45 seconds in the second period. 2-2 tie. Now the Blues will bring it back. Here's Reeds just driving it into the corner. Brad Park in quickly after it, being bothered by Pettersson. Left it for Smith. Greg Smith up the right wing now to Duguay. The Wings move out with Yzerman down the left side. Yzerman into the St. Louis zone. Yzerman being checked there, then laid it into the corner, and Duguay goes in after it. Duguay put it out in front. Yzerman got control of it, laid it into the corner. They battle it along the boards there. Duguay dug it out. Here now is Ogrodnik, and his shot was blocked by Babbage. And the Blues will shoot it back into the Detroit zone with 10 seconds to go. The Wings had a good opportunity. Greg Smith a long pass. Mano takes it over 2 lines offside. 4 seconds left.
Very important face-off now because of the 2-line pass coming all the way back in Detroit zone. But Detroit here in the second period have done just what St. Louis did in the first period. They have out-bumped the Blues. They have out-skated them. They've had all the scoring opportunities.
I think the happiest man in the building to see this second period end will be referee Dave Newell.
Yes, no doubt about it.
He's done a pretty good job off of a hectic 20 minutes.
The shot board reads 13 for Detroit, 2 for St. Louis here in the second period. Total of 21 for the game for Detroit, 15 for St. Louis.
2-2 tie after the Blues jumped out in front 2-0 in the first period. Mano, Gare, Dunlop up front for Detroit. Wickenheiser in against Dunlop. Off to the left of the Detroit net. Danny Gare and Federico circling a little too quickly. Now the puck drop, stayed right there in the circle, dug away by Gare. And the clock will go, the buzzer sounds, and that's the end of the second period, which for a while I wasn't sure was going to end. In the second period, Danny Gare from Mano, and then Smith from Yzerman and Bolderev to tie it at 15-51. The shots on goal, 13 for the Wings and only 2 for St. Louis. That gives the Red Wings 21, St. Louis 15 after 2 periods of play. Well, if the first 2 periods have been much indication, we should have a great 20 minutes still remaining to be played here, and maybe more than that, who knows. That's the story here at the arena in St. Louis after 2 periods of play. Detroit 2, St. Louis 2. Let's pause for this. Hello again from here at the arena in St. Louis. The Detroit Red Wings trailing 2-0 going into the second period of play have tied the hockey game. And here it is, our Shell Auto Care scoring summary. With Delorme and Pettersson scoring in the first period, Danny Gare got the Red Wings on the board at 1:53 of the second period. The goal listed as unassisted. So I thought I heard them give assist to Bob Mano. They did. So Bob Mano has an assist on the Danny Gare goal. And then the Red Wings' Greg Smith from Yzerman and Bolderev at 15:51 tied the hockey game. And in the period, the Red Wings outshot St. Louis unbelievably 13-2. And that's it, our Shell Auto Care scoring summary. Sid, as the Red Wings file back out onto the ice, we didn't make mention, we got on kind of a hurry tonight, that Eddie Johnstone is not dressed with the return of Dwight Foster to the Detroit lineup. But Eddie pointed something out to me between periods. We were trying to decide why a match penalty. A major penalty is normally caused by an injury to a player, an intent to injure, so forth. But a match penalty is not. But Eddie said that he looked at Schofield in the penalty box, and he had a heavy cast, it looked to be, or a heavily bandaged arm with which he struck Reed Larson. And that is an automatic match penalty. So that indeed was probably what referee Newell was explaining to Jacques Demers, if you will, down below us. And he just shook his head and said, okay, I understand.
Could very well be.
Well, with the Red Wings in the playoffs, Red Wing tickets are more popular than ever, and you be sure to have your favorite seat for the playoffs next spring. Stop by the Red Wings ticket information booth at this Saturday's playoff game at Joe Louis Arena. Reserve your 1984-85 Red Wings season tickets and take all summer to pay for it. Ticket information booths will be located at the two main entrances at the Joe Louis Arena.
You know, we have 25 youngsters here cheering for the Wings tonight. The Compuware Midget Hockey Club is here in St. Louis. They play tomorrow afternoon in the National Midget Finals. We want to wish them well. I hope they don't go and feel that they have to play the way this game has been played, where everybody's in the penalty box. And I'm hoping, Bruce, now here in the third period, that we'll settle down and play hockey and have an up and down period and stop all these penalties and all these fights.
Well, the teams are at full strength, though the penalty box lists 4 players. Reed Larson and Gilmour go back in to finish or Anderson to finish their 7 minutes, and then Campbell and Pichette went off at 16:43, 5 apiece. Teams are at full strength, though, as the third period is underway in this 2-2 tie. Now the puck-driven center ice for Gilmour. Doug Gilmour leads a 3-man rush over the line. A drive by Pettersson. A loose puck ended up behind the net as Stefan came out and made the save, a big save. Now puck held in at the blue line, then knocked away by John Ogrodnik, and Ogrodnik just backhands at the length of the ice. And there'll be an icing call as Terry Johnson is back to touch it, and the play comes back into the Detroit zone. But Stefan came up with a big save a moment ago on Pettersson.
There's Mr. Illich and Jim Lights and a bunch of the people over, and young Mike Illich Jr. here taking in the series. And I would think a little on the nervous side, getting involved in this hockey business.
But he's very pleased, first of all, that the Red Wings, after such a long absence, are back into the playoffs.
There's no doubt about that.
Now here are the Blues, back to Ramage with a drive knocked away easily by Stefan. Centering pass by Duguay, skipped over the stick of Ogrodnik, and Gilmour has it back in the St. Louis end. Gilmour now played it over on the left side to Johnson, rather slowly coming out center ice. Park slowed his man up as the play goes in behind the Detroit goal. This time the icing call against the Blues, and the play comes back into the St. Louis end.
I have one more note. John and Jane Christian from Trenton, Michigan, want to say hi to all their friends back there taking in the game tonight.
You know, in the very last days of the National Hockey League season, the Boston Bruins made a great splurge and overcame the Buffalo Sabres to beat them out for first place in that division. But Boston may be sorry they did it, because Montreal has come in and won the first 2 games right in the Boston Gardens. And meanwhile, Buffalo probably wish they were playing Montreal, because Quebec beat them the first game last night and lead them 6-2 tonight. Here's Reed Larson with a shot, and he drilled that one wide. Mano holding it in at the blue line, played it in behind the goal, and Foster went charging in after it. He held the play. Gare gave it back to Foster. Foster centering pass never got through. It'll be dug off the boards, though. There's an injured player. Delorme is down in a heap off to the side of the St. Louis goal, and so they stopped the play with the Red Wings pressing.
And I don't know just what happened to him. Foster really run into him behind the net. This is how Dwight Foster gets hurt every once in a while. Not on a play like that. Delorme just seemed to fall on his own.
Well, I think Foster had the stick under his ankle, but
it's not his ankle that's injured by the looks of it. They're looking up.
I didn't see him hit his head when he went down. He seems to be all right. He even looked to have a little smile on his face.
Just the
or
play,
maybe it's a grimace. I'm not sure.
Just the play before that, Dwight Foster was really hit behind the net, and he's playing with a bad shoulder. He has injured his leg, there's no doubt. Appears to be his left ankle. Now watch the play behind the net. Foster come along. Foster doesn't back up at all. In fact, takes a little jump. That's where he hurt his ankle, right there, and he just collapses then later when Foster got his stick involved with his feet.
So we come back now to the live action, a 2-2 tie. The play in the St. Louis zone. Rick Wilson skates it in behind his own goal. Wilson clears it all the way down the ice, and there'll be another icing call as Larson is back after it, and the play again comes back into the St. Louis end. Minute and 25 into the third period. Game tied 2-2. We pause for this. St. Louis Blues in their own zone, scoop it out center ice. Randy Ladouceur the wings, drives it right back in, but he didn't carry it far enough, and there'll be an icing call this time against Detroit. And the play back into the St. Louis end, off to the left side of Greg Stefan.
Randy just had to take one more step and cross center ice, and the play would have been okay, but a lot of Detroit fans there. Ed Jameson, Travel Bureau. A lot of Red Wing fans here.
Play stays to the left side of the Detroit goal. Blake Dunlop comes on to take the face-off in against Guy Chouinard. 2-2 tie. Early moments of the third period, and Dunlop won the face-off, and Larson goes in behind his own net, up the left side to Mano. Then Bob Mano just drives it to the center ice area. Wilson has it there, and Sutter shoots it back into the Detroit zone. Mano goes chasing in after it. Mano in behind the Detroit goal, didn't get it out. Sutter held it in. Larson covers up. His pass won't come out. Bothwell took the shot, and Stefan got to that, cleared it away. Now Ladouceur sends it center ice. Here's Mano picking it up. Back now to Kissio over the line. Kissio played it into the corner, but the wings are changing, and the Blues will bring it back. Sutter plays it ahead now to Wilson. Wilson bounces it right to the Detroit net. Stefan stops it there. Digging in after it, Gilmour. He went sliding into the boards feet first, and the wings will bring it back. That was Paslowski. Here now Bolderev ahead to Lambert. Lambert checked right at the St. Louis line, so Kissio has it. Kelly Kissio backhands it into the St. Louis zone. It'll be taken there by Terry Johnson of the Blues. They played it back to the Detroit end, and Greg Smith back after it. Game tied 2-2. The Blues Ramage at his own blue line. Ramage hands it off now to Johnson. Terry Johnson clearing it ahead to Federko, trying to work away from Greg Smith. Smith stayed with him. A puck came out in front. Here's a chance for Ramage. And the shot blocked by Kissio, and it ends up in the crowd. And now Mule is letting things go. And Federko questions him.
St. Louis have had the only 4 shots here in this third period. Only one of them dangerous.
Paslowski went heavily into the board.
Oh, he really did. He could have been injured on this play. He went feet first.
Face-off will stay the rim of the circle to the left side of the Detroit goal. Colin Campbell and Pichette's penalty time is up. Matter of fact, the penalty box empty. Both teams back now at full strength. Federko in against Dunlop. Barrett goes in behind his own net. John Barrett bringing it out now to center ice. Barrett on the move, being bothered from behind by Anderson. They drive it into the St. Louis zone. Lambert bumped his man. The puck held in. It bounced off the referee. Now the Blues pick it up again. It's cleared all the way back into the Detroit zone. Paslowski's going to get there first for this one. Maybe. No, Barrett took him off the puck. They whistled off the icing, though. Foster held it in. Foster cleared it off to Barrett. It comes back toward the blue line. Ramage winds up for a drive, and Stefan got to that. Now Foster turned around in the corner, but Campbell bumped Federko off the puck. Bolderev, he's having trouble with it. Now the Blues are applying pressure. Here's Campbell. He goes into the corner. A penalty coming up, and I believe to Campbell.
Yes, there's no doubt about it.
Now the Blues player Anderson walks back at Campbell. The two of them pin each other to the boards, but the Red Wings are going to play short a man, I think. Now Colin Campbell and Anderson. Campbell trying to swing over the linesman.
Anderson holding him by the hair.
And Campbell yelling at the referee Newell. Two of them will go off, but I think Campbell is going to pick up the first penalty. It all comes about at 3 minutes and 47 seconds of this third period.
Well, Colin jumped high and seemed to get up over his back.
St. Louis 5 for fighting. Detroit 2 for charging, 5 for fighting.
Campbell got 2 plus 5. St. Louis just got the 5 for fighting. Surprising there wasn't a penalty of some sort called for pulling hair. Usually the referees are very close covering that.
Well, the Red Wings will play short a man, and we'll be back with the St. Louis power play in a moment. St. Louis Blues have the extra man, a 2-minute charging penalty, and each player picking 5 for fighting. So St. Louis, with the extra man, have driven it into the Wings actually drove it into the St. Louis zone offside. We have played exactly 4 minutes now, the third period of a 2-2 hockey game. New York Islanders shut out tonight by the New York Rangers 3-0. Washington making good work over Philadelphia, defeated the Flyers 6-2. Canadians 3-1 over Buffalo. And Quebec winning 2 in a row over, I said 3-1 over Buffalo over Boston.
Quebec winning 2 in a row is a big surprise.
Now here's Federico sending it right to the Detroit net. Stefan played it into the corner, but Ramage went in deep. Played it in behind the Detroit goal. They kick away at it. Ladouceur ties his man up, and Stefan grabs onto the loose puck. They hold on to it, and a face-off remains in the Detroit end of the left side of the Red Wing goal. This is the kind of a game, Sid, that a season ago, Greg Stefan would have been involved in a few things.
Right. Greg just wants to make sure that he gets a hold of this puck. Everybody is paying attention to bodies more so than the puck. Nobody really playing the puck. St. Louis trying to kick it out in front. Greg just makes sure that he gets a hold of it. The face-off deep in Detroit zone.
A minute 26 remaining in the penalty to Colin Campbell. The face-off to the left side of the Detroit goal. Dunlop won the draw. Ladouceur will pick up the loose puck. And Ladouceur bangs it off the glass back into the St. Louis zone. Liut in behind his own goal. Laid it there to Ramage. Up the right side to Babbage. Now Wayne Babbage played it behind his player. Nano took a whack at it. It's loose at the St. Louis blue line. Comes back now to Wickenheiser. Wickenheiser skating it out center ice. Lifting it into the corner deep in the Detroit zone. Dunlop in after it. Drives it up the right side, and Nano has the opening. Plays it ahead to Ladouceur. He's got Dunlop coming up with him. Ladouceur into the St. Louis zone. Going right in. Here's Ladouceur. He scores!
Oh, what
a play by Randy Ladouceur to give the Red Wings a 3-2 lead on a shorthanded goal.
Well, Bruce, the puck hit the defenseman as he went around him, and it come right back to him, and he went in. But for a defenseman to pull Liut, he just made the move. A perfect play coming out, taking a pass in deep for Ladouceur, and stick handling around the defense, and the puck bounced up, hit his body, and put him in the clear.
He went by a forward, Babbage.
Right. Didn't make that much of a fake in front of Liut, just put it in between his legs. But as he went to go around Babbage, the puck come up in the air, struck Ladouceur's body. He made one big deke, and as Liut went over to cover it, he put it between his legs.
Shows you how things go. That's the first shot the Red Wings have had in the period, and the Blues have had 7. But Detroit now leads the game 3-2. Here is Rick Wilson out at center ice. Blues have the extra man for 40 seconds. Pichette lifts it back into the Detroit zone. Mano goes after it and drives it again down the ice back into the St. Louis zone, and then Mano is upended by Wilson. Ramage takes it off to the side of Pichette, off the side of his own goal, comes out center ice again. Now Dave Pichette plays it back to Chouinard. He had to turn back after it. Guy Chouinard. Now Chouinard laid it into the Detroit zone, digging after it. Pettersson took it into the corner. Dunlop broke it up. And picking it off now, Reed Larson ahead to Mano. Mano over the line with Dunlop. Dunlop laid it back for Larson. He couldn't get to it, and the Blues break that up. Penalty is over, and back on now the Red Wings at full strength. Play comes back down the ice. Dave Pichette shooting it into the Detroit zone. Yzerman gives chase to it. Goes in behind his own goal. Now cleared it ahead, and Mano hands it back to Reed Larson, and Larson drove a shot from center ice. Liut grabs that off. Plays it up the right wing. There it'll hold it in at the blue line with a shot knocked down by Yzerman with a high stick, and the play whistled down. Teams are full strength. We've played 6 minutes, 13 seconds of this, the third period, and it is 3-2. Detroit leading on the shorthanded goal by Ladouceur.
And at the end of the first period, if anyone would have thought that the Wings could come out and change this game around the way they did in the second period to tie it, here in the third, St. Louis started to put the little drive on again, and the Wings seem to be backing up. But Ladouceur gets in and scores the goal to put them ahead on the first shot of the period.
You know, I give a great deal of credit to Bob Mano. He did a magnificent job on the penalty killing. Now here's Delorme shooting it back of the Detroit goal. Stefan came out of the net, but Federico held it in, so Stefan cleared it again, this time to Foster. He hit the back of the Detroit goal. Pettersson trying to center it. Tied up by Greg Smith. Pettersson came out with it. He was sent to the ice by Greg Smith, and here comes Aubry with Foster trailing. Aubry over the line, drove a shot. Delorme got a stick of that, and it deflects high up into the crowd behind the St. Louis goal.
Well, Pierre Aubry scored a couple of goals against Chicago by getting in over the blue line and letting go his shot. He can get it away pretty good. This one deflected well up into the crowd.
No matter what happens here tonight, the Wings lead it 3-2. I tell you, it should be something at the Joe Louis Arena Saturday night.
Oh, I should say, these teams are so closely matched.
And there are, to put it mildly, ill feelings. Aubry is out on the left side, replacing Mano, was on for the entire power play a moment ago. Puck goes in behind the goal, the St. Louis power play, and now Bothwell heads out. Here's Tim Bothwell coming out center ice for St. Louis. Knocked down by Greg Smith. It went in offside. The Wings will bring it back with Barrett. John Barrett carries back into the St. Louis zone around Bothwell. Here's Barrett. Slid it right out in front. A loose puck there, and Liut didn't see it for the moment, then clears it away. Now right back down the ice. Sutter moving into the Detroit zone. The puck loose. Sutter has it going right in. Oh, and he's knocked down, and the Red Wings gain control. A hooking call to the Red Wings.
That could be a good penalty, though, Bruce.
Oh, yes.
Now, that was a play very similar to Ladouceur's. The puck bounced up, hits Sutter, and he wound up going through the defense and still had control of the puck. I don't know who's going to get the penalty.
Aubry
getting the penalty, but the puck just bounced up, struck Sutter, and he was late through.
We have a pause in the action. It is 3-2 Detroit. We'll be back with the St. Louis power play in a moment. Aubry is off for hooking, 7-13, Detroit short a man. Leading the game on a shorthanded goal by Ladouceur, the Blues come out. Here's Bernie Pettersson dropping it back for Pettersson. Pettersson chases it into the corner. Pettersson centering pass, and Larson knocked it away. In behind the goal, Randy Ladouceur didn't get it out. It came out in front. There's the shot wide of the goal by Gilmour, who was open. A shot from the line, deflected wide of the net, and they score. Off to the side of the goal, Gilmour tips it in.
Couldn't have worked out better for them. The puck was deflected right out in front of the net, practically stopped, then just rolled over to the open side, and Gilmour standing there had all day to put it in, but it was a shot right along the ice, deflected in front of the net, and practically stopped, and Gilmour standing over to the side of the net just reached in and put it in the net to tie this hockey game up. Power play goal for St. Louis.
Gilmour gets his first in the series. The Blues have outshot Detroit 8-2. Pettersson and Ramage draw the assists on the goal. Scored by Gilmour.
Gilmour from Ramage and Pettersson at 7:51.
So now we're all tied at 3 apiece. The Blues have had back-to-back power plays, gave up a goal and then scored one. The play loose at center ice. They jam it in along the boards. Greg Smith holding it there. A face-off stays in the center ice area. So a 3-3 tie. We'll be back in a moment. Let's take 5 seconds for station identification.
This is WKVD TV 50 Detroit.
A 3-3 tie. The Red Wings, Brad Park at center ice. Lifts the puck back into the St. Louis zone. Ramage goes after it. Ramage cleared it up on the left wing, held in at the blue line by Park. Park's pass didn't get through, and the Blues will bring it back. Here's a lead pass. It's skipped by Pettersson. Goes off to the side of the Detroit net, and Greg Smith in behind his own goal. Now we have 11 minutes, 35 seconds to play. Third period. Yzerman checked, knocked away by Pettersson, then Yzerman took it away from him, ahead to John O'Grodnik over the line with Ramage back. O'Grodnik trying to get loose, dumped it into the corner, and Johnson had Duguay all tied up. Puck held in by Park. Here's Yzerman picking it up out in front of backhand shot. He scores, and the Red Wings lead it 4-3.
Well, Steve Yzerman made no mistake with that. The rookie's first goal here in the playoffs on a backhander right along the ice, and beat Liut cleanly, taking a little pass from Brad Park. No mistake, he just turned around, got onto his backhand with Ramage backing in a little bit, right along the ice, beating Liut. Just a perfect shot just inside the post. Ramage backed in. If he'd have come out and challenged him, I doubt if Yzerman would have been able to get the shot away.
Park draws the only assist in Yzerman's first goal of the playoffs, and the Wings back into a one-goal lead, 4-3. Detroit's third shot of the period. Now the play out at center ice. Larson picks it up, sent it back into the St. Louis zone. Pichette fires it back down the ice. Ladouceur knocks it down. Ladouceur heading out at Kissio. Kissio bounced away from him, and Wickenheiser turns with it. Now Dave Wickenheiser cleared it out center ice. It'll be taken by Wilson, who shot it over the top of the Detroit goal, and Larson carries in behind his own net. Reed Larson took it into the corner. Now Larson sends it ahead to Kissio. Kissio drove it from center ice into the corner. Lambert trying to get loose. Hickey made the cover on him. Lambert pulled away a second time. Back to Larson, and he fired it just wide. Here's Ogrodnik holding it in. John Ogrodnik put it to the goal. The Utes steered it in behind the net. Ogrodnik given a whack. And a big piece of glass knocked out right into the crowd. So they stopped the play and attend to somebody, I think, who was hit as that glass fell out. Saturday night at 8 o'clock, the NHL playoffs continue. So be sure to tune in when the Detroit Red Wings battle it out with the St. Louis Blues. That's Saturday at 8, WKBD TV 50, your choice for sports in Detroit.
I do believe a fan was probably injured. The glass was broken. John Ogrodnik, talking to him in the hotel today, said that he felt good. His legs felt good playing the game last night, but his wrist just a little weak and a little conscious of things when he went in the corners. He said he didn't do things natural because of knowing that the wrist was not completely healed.
Well, I think he said, too, he was just plain nervous.
Yes,
this is John's first playoff. Then the out of action for a long period of time. Well, Larry Adderley will bring you up to date on what's happening out of town on this second day of playoffs. Larry?
Bruce, it's all final in the Adams division, with Montreal beating Boston 3-1 and Quebec taking Buffalo 6-2. Montreal and Quebec, the visiting teams, each winning the first two games of their series. The Rangers beat the Islanders 3-0. Glenn Hanlon in goal for the Rangers, getting the shutout. And Washington took Philadelphia 6-2. The New York series at 1 game apiece. Washington up 2-0 on Philadelphia. It's a 3-3 tie in Minnesota between Chicago and the North Stars. Make that 4-3. Chicago has just scored in the third period. Chicago leading. Winnipeg ahead of Edmonton still, but the Oilers are coming back. 3-2 in the second period. No score. Vancouver and Calgary in the second period. Back to the game.
Thank you, Larry. Here it is 4-3. Puck came right out in front of backhand shot by Foster, knocked away by Liut. And Liut grabs the loose puck to the side of the St. Louis goal and grabbed onto that.
And St. Louis can make mistakes in deep. Their defenseman not covering out in front of the net. Foster come awful close to giving the Wings a two-goal cushion.
Larry, I know that there are a lot of fans interested in it. Our board here shows the Minnesota North Stars having gone in front of Chicago 4-3. So one of us got the wrong information. Now the face off to the right of the St. Louis goal. Mano took the shot, knocked down out in front. The Blues will bring it back. Anderson down the left wing. Anderson trying to work around Greg Smith, and Smith took him off the puck, and Danny Gare will take it. Now Gare out at center ice, slides it ahead to Foster. Dwight Foster carries into the St. Louis zone. Gare holds it in. Here's Gare going into the corner. Dumped out in front of the net was Mano, and Federico comes up with a puck. Mano knocked it away from him. Gare in the corner again. In the corner, second time to Mano. It's tipped back out to center ice, and Greg Smith is there to play it. 9:35 remaining in the third period. 4-3 Detroit. Now Perry Anderson sent it out center ice again. Greg Smith takes it there, shot it back in. Lambert was trapped offside, but on the delayed call, Paslowski brings it back. Broken up by John Barrett. Here's Lambert. Lane Lambert, with the Red Wings changing on the move, just drove it back into the St. Louis zone. The Blues Delorme tipped it to the line. It'll be brought back out by St. Louis. Delorme at center ice. And that was knocked away, and John Barrett clears it to Kissio over 2 lines and offside. We have a pause in the action. 4-3 Detroit. We'll be back in a moment. It was Minnesota that did get the goal, so they have jumped out in front 4-3. The Blackhawks lead the series 1-0. They're in the third period. Now here's Reed Larson. Carrying down the right side, dumping it deep into the St. Louis zone. Rick Wilson went in after it. He's bumped off the puck by Kissio. Ladouceur couldn't hold it in, and Sutter will bring it back. Sutter's pass hit a skate, came out to Chouinard, but Ladouceur will come back to the Detroit line to pick it up there. He played it too far out in front of Kissio. There'll be an icing call against the Wings as Pichette goes back to touch it. And now we have 8 minutes and 43 seconds remaining in the third period. 4-3 Detroit.
I would think these teams have to be a little tired. Bruce played a real tough hockey game last night, and the first 2 periods tonight was all fighting and wrestling and real heavy body work all night long, so it has to take its toll.
Third game of the playoffs between the Wings and St. Louis, Saturday, 8 o'clock at the Joe Louis Arena. Fourth game will be Sunday if it's needed. And there are still some tickets remaining for each of the 2 games. Tickets sold only at the Joe Louis Arena. Now the play in the Detroit zone. The puck came back to Pichette. He laid it in behind the Red Wing goal. Babbage digs it out of the corner, put it out in front, and took it away. Lane Lambert was tied up by Pichette. Ladouceur lifts it out center ice. Wilson back on his own blue line for the Blues. Hands it there to Dave Pichette. Now Pichette sends it right back into the Detroit zone. Stefan steers it off to Reed Larson. Larson deflected it up into the crowd, so the face-off will stay in the Detroit end.
St. Louis are using a little bit of a different wrinkle here and getting the puck into the Detroit zone tonight. They are not shooting the puck in along the boards. They're kind of flipping it in and then trying to beat the wing defenseman back in for possession of it.
They did that in the first period, yes, and they did it very well.
And they've started doing it here again in the third, and the Wings have to be alert on it, and the defensemen cannot be lazy. They have to turn and go back for it because St. Louis are just flipping it in, trying to take advantage of the puck going in fairly slow.
Dunlop wins a face-off cleanly from Wickenheiser. Brad Park in behind his own goal. Park still in behind the Detroit net, taking a lot of time. Wickenheiser watching him out in front. Now Park comes out. Here is Park. Moving it to the line, a pass ahead to John Ogrodnik, and Ogrodnik drives it deep into the St. Louis zone. Duguay digs in along the boards after it. He was checked, though, and Ramage steers it ahead. It bounces center ice as John Ogrodnik comes back to the Detroit line, picks it up there, ahead to Yzerman. Yzerman was checked, and Stefan came well out of the net. Didn't get it out. Held in by Wickenheiser, but Yzerman came in and tipped away his shot. And now Park up the right side. It'll be taken now by John Ogrodnik, and Ogrodnik again shoots it off to the side of the goal. Took a crazy bounce, hit the side of the net. They're going to call it icing against Detroit, bringing the play right back into the Red Wing end with now 7 minutes and 36 seconds to play in this third period and a 4-3 lead for the Wings.
Steve Yzerman trying to come out of his own zone with the puck, being a little too nonchalant with it, had the puck taken away from him, forcing Greg Stefan to come way out of the net to try and clear it for him. The Wings, with 7 minutes and 36 seconds to go, try now to see if they can play error-free, but you cannot sit on this lead.
Danny Gare and Mano. Dunlop again to take the face-off against Federko. Federko won it. There's Bothwell with a drive. Hit the goal post. Off to the right of the Red Wing goaltender. Played in behind the Detroit net. They go in behind the goal after it. Anderson pinned in along the boards by John Barrett. And a face-off stays still in the Detroit end, and that was close.
St. Louis so dangerous when they get the puck back out to the point. Their defensemen keep firing it, trying to put everything on the net.
Harry Anderson, he's been in a couple little mix-ups. Everybody has been, for that matter. Now this time the Wings won the draw. Barrett goes in behind his own goal. Barrett up the right side. Danny Gare tipped it ahead just too far for Dunlop. Now the Blues will bring it right back to the Detroit end. A bouncing puck. They go after it. It came loose. Came right out in front. And Stefan reached out and grabbed onto it. That puck was headed for the goal, and Greg Stefan, lying flat on his back, just reached the glove across the goal mouth and held it out.
Well, the puck hit a bad board or bad glass and bounced right back out in front of the net. And Greg went by it with his goal stick, and then as it was bouncing in towards the net, he just reached out with the arm. I thought he froze the puck, but he moved it back in against his pad. A very close call. Greg caught out of position then after making the big movement with his stick, but did make the save.
7 minutes and 7 seconds remaining in the third period. Wings lead at 4-3. Dunlop again beat Federko on the face-off. Colin Campbell lifts it back out center ice. Delorme at his own blue line. Now the puck driven back into the Detroit zone. Colin Campbell in a race with Anderson. Campbell knocked it ahead to Danny Gare, center ice to Mano. Bob Mano with Delorme in front of him over the line. Mano pulls up, looking around for somebody, handed it back to Gare. Gare fired the shot over the top of the goal. Foster was driven into the net, and the net came off its pins behind Mike Liut, so that play is stopped. We've a pause in the action. Detroit leading 4-3. We'll be back in a moment. 6 minutes, 42 seconds to play in the third period. 4-3 Detroit. Ivan Boldarev, Kissio, and Lambert up front for the Wings. Babbage, Chouinard, and Sutter. The forward line for the Blues now. Doc Demers has changed his lines around a bit. Federico has been on this line. Now the puck came back to Ladouceur. Ladouceur played it in along the boards. Held there. Kissio tried to get it loose. Boldarev did. Knocked away from him, though, and here comes Chouinard out. Chouinard leads the rush for St. Louis. Over the line, Pichette. He was slowed up by Reed Larson, and Lambert in behind his own goal. A bouncing, rolling puck. He plays it ahead to Boldarev. Up the left side, Kelly Kissio chases it into the St. Louis zone with Pichette. Kissio got there. Pichette drives him in along the boards, and Babbage goes in behind his own net. Laid it into the corner. Now it'll be taken by Ramage, who bounces it out center ice, and Larson knocks it down there, shoots it right back into the St. Louis zone. Ramage chases it along the boards. Kissio tipped it away from him. Boldarev played it off to the side of the net. Pichette just left it there, and Ramage in behind his own goal. Rob Ramage heads back down the ice for St. Louis. Played to the Detroit line, and Lambert knocked it away, and now here's Kissio going after it, and coming out of the net, Liut cleared it away from him as Kissio was driving in. Ramage shot it back to the Detroit end, and Reed Larson plays it right back center ice. Sutter lost it almost, and Ramage had to cover up with Yzerman digging in again. Chouinard circling back at his own line. Ahead now, here's Gilmour back into the Detroit zone. A drop pass. There's Bothwell with a drive, and it sailed wide. And the Wings pick it up, and John Ogrodnik bangs it back into the St. Louis zone as Rick Wilson comes back after it. 5 minutes, 15 seconds to go now, and it's up and down the play over the line, and here's Gilmour going right in, and Stefan stayed with him and made the save. As Gilmour charged right in, another shot deflected away in front of the goal. Oh, and it's all St. Louis right now. They hold the puck along the boards. Oh, and Greg Stefan did the job.
Boy, what it means to have great goaltending. Greg Stefan never batted an eye, stayed in the net. Gilmour tried to pull him. Gilmour was skating so fast that when he made the draw to try and go around Stefan, the puck went off the end of his stick. But he just bounced right through the middle. The puck got away from him as he made the deke to go around Stefan, and he fell over Stefan's legs.
Stefan had the net covered, lying flat on the ice. Had Gilmour been able to get it up, it was a tie hockey game. We have 5 minutes to play in the third period. Now Brad Park turns deep in his own zone, circles in behind his goal. Played it into the corner for Greg Smith. Smith being watched by Gilmour, and the Blues again hold it in. A centering pass right out in front, and it was knocked away again by Stefan. And John Ogrodnik again flipped it in the air, and it banged back into the Detroit bench.
Boy, oh boy, they better change the formula for trying to get out of the zone. They 2 errors here in the last half a minute, and Greg Stefan having to come to the front to make this, keep this score 4-3 for Detroit.
Let's go back now to Larry Adderley.
Bruce, in the other Norris Division semifinal, it's late in the third period. Minnesota has maintained that 1-goal lead, but Chicago got one back. It's 5-4 North Stars late in the third period.
North Stars need a victory there to tie that series. Chicago winning the opener last night. Well, here we have 4:40 to go. A long shot by Pichette, and Stefan had to deflect that up into the crowd. So right now it's St. Louis carrying the play to Detroit. They've outshot them 13-6. With the Red Wings in the playoffs, the Wings tickets are more popular than ever right now, so you can have your favorite seat for the playoffs next spring when you stop by the Red Wings ticket information booth at this Saturday's playoff game at the Joe Louis Arena. Reserve your 1984-85 Red Wings season ticket. Take all summer to pay for it. Ticket information booths will be open Saturday, Joe Louis Arena. Look out, here's a quick shot by Pichette, knocked down, it never got through. The Wings kick it, and it rolls to the line and not out. Held right out in front of the Detroit goal, and Stefan deflected it into the corner again. The Wings just trying to work it out of their own zone, having trouble doing it. Larson tried to tie his man up. Wickenheiser checked in along the boards by Gare, and finally Dunlop rolls it back to the St. Louis zone. 4 minutes and 15 seconds to go in the third period. 4-3 Detroit, but the Blues are charging. Played into the Detroit zone, taken away by Foster. His pass knocked down at the St. Louis line by Ramage, and the Blues again drive it back to the Detroit net. Stefan plays it along the glass. It bounced high. Bob Nano knocked it down and lifts it back into the St. Louis zone, and this will be an icing call. St. Louis has just completely taken the play away from Detroit, have outshot them 15-6 in this period. But the Wings have goals, 2 of them. A shorthanded goal by Ladouceur, and then Yzerman from Park to take a 4-3 lead with 3 minutes and 52 seconds left in regulation time.
I don't believe Detroit are trying to sit back and protect this 1-goal lead. St. Louis have just put on the pressure again by moving the puck in deep and moving everybody in against them.
Larry, how about Chicago?
Up in Bloomington, Bruce, a wild one. The North Stars have scored again, and they lead Chicago 6-4 late in the third period, threatening to even that series at 1 apiece.
Now here is John Barrett in behind his own goal. He lost it back there. Chouinard takes it away. Chouinard goes to the corner, centered it, went right through Babbage. And Ivan Boldyrev fanned on it. The Wings just can't work it out. Sutter takes it into the corner. Now Dunlop drives it over on the side. It didn't come out. Colin Campbell picks it up. Campbell tipped it out center ice, and the Wings are 2-on-1. Dunlop and Boldyrev. Here's Dunlop to Boldyrev. Boldyrev missed the side of the net with it. Off balance, the puck stays in the St. Louis zone. Dunlop in the corner goes in after it. The Blues, though, come up with it. A big opportunity as Boldyrev, just enough off balance, couldn't finish it. Now St. Louis, Delorme, center ice. Bothwell tips it deep into the Detroit end, and Lane Lambert goes in after it. Lambert just dumped it along the boards. Lambert will go after it a second time. He was checked there. The puck held, and the face-off stays still in the Detroit end with 3 minutes and 2 seconds to play in the third period. 4-3 Detroit.
And the Wings are starting to show the pressure that St. Louis are putting on. They are not getting possession of the puck deep in their zone.
Big opportunity, though, Sid, for Dunlop and Boldyrev.
Right. Dunlop made a terrific play across to Ivan. Ivan pulled it over. He had Liut going the other way. But just similar to the play where St. Louis missed, the puck went off his stick when he made the deke. He couldn't get back to it.
It still didn't miss by a whole lot. Now Duguay comes out with Dunlop to take the face-off, and John O'Grodnik, Larson, and Ladouceur. Wickenheiser, Gilmour, and Pettersson up front. Ramage, Bichette for St. Louis. 3 minutes, 2 seconds to play in the third period. 4-3 the Red Wings, but the Blues have been pressing. Dunlop won the draw. Duguay turns with it. Played it to the line, but not out. Bichette a drive, knocked off to the side of the net. Larson goes in after it. Larson plays it ahead, and Dunlop tips it center ice. Now Ramage. He lost it there. Duguay played it back on his own line. Larson drove it back center ice. Duguay knocked his man down there. They hold on to it. He and Gilmour. That creates a face-off at center ice with now 2 minutes and 44 seconds remaining in this third period.
It is now nail-biting time for anybody pulling for the Wings, and especially for the Illich family and for Jimmy Devellano and the coaches.
Now the Blues have it at center ice with Rob Ramage. Ramage lifting it deep into the Detroit zone. Larson knocks it down. Larson drives it off the glass, and again Bichette held it in. Larson has it in the corner again. Plays it to the opposite side. O'Grodnik is there. John O'Grodnik couldn't work it out. Now the Blues again deep in the Detroit end. It comes back to O'Grodnik. O'Grodnik lifts it out center ice. A bouncing puck that'll be played by Bichette to Pettersson at the St. Louis blue line. Giving it now to Ramage. 2 minutes and 15 seconds. A puck lost in the St. Louis zone. Duguay put it out in front. It was tipped off to the corner. Duguay goes in after it. Ron Duguay trying to center it. Here's Duguay playing it back toward Ladouceur. Randy Ladouceur held it in, drove it in behind the goal. It bounced to the side of the net, and Ramage tries the opposite side for Pettersson. Pettersson lifts it out center ice. O'Grodnik knocks it down there. 1:55 to go. Here now Duguay carrying in. Ron Duguay checked in along the boards. It came back to Yzerman. Yzerman lifted it in behind the goal. O'Grodnik tipped it to the corner. Gilmour covers up there. 1:45 in the third period. Now Gilmour out of his own zone. Out at center ice for Pettersson. Pettersson over the line, and the play offside as Bothwell moved in ahead of the puck carry, and we've 1:36 to go. Third period, and it's 4-3 Detroit.
And the Wings got a break there. Pettersson ever so dangerous when he's carrying the play. Bothwell, the big defenseman, a little too anxious, beat him across the blue line, causing the offside, allowing the face-off now just outside of the blue line, and allowing the Wings to make a line change and come back out with Gare and Mano and Dwight Foster.
Federico, Babbage, and Sutter up front now. Rick Wilson and Rob Ramage. The Wings have their checking unit with Foster, Gare, Mano. Foster won the face-off. Barrett tips it out center ice. Mano picks it up there. His pass hit a skate. Danny Gare had it for a moment. Gare knocked it away. Federico covers up. Back into his own zone. Now to Rick Wilson. Here's Wilson charging back into the Detroit zone. He fanned on a pass. It went off to the side of the Detroit goal, and Greg Stefan is going to hold on to it. Now we have a little tussle, and Colin Campbell right in the middle of it again. In behind the Detroit goal. 1:16 remaining to be played in the third period. And now we'll keep an eye on Mike Liut to see if the St. Louis Blues will lift their goaltender for the extra attacker.
Does this remind you of last night? It was just about this time last night that the Wings pulled within one and then had the play all around the St. Louis net trying to get the equalizer. Now we have the face-off deep in Detroit zone.
St. Louis
16 to go.
St. Louis with 16 shots to Detroit 6 in this third period after the Red Wings had outshot them 13-2 in the second. Still we're having conversations down there in the circle off to the left of the Detroit goal. Federico and Colin Campbell, they're yapping at one another. And now John Barrett, he's doing some shoving. Bob Mano, he and Ramage threatening one another. I don't know if this is good, bad, or indifference.
Well, if they weren't pushing and wrestling, I would say it would be good. The Wings could be getting a little bit of a breather here, but everybody's pushing and grabbing, so you don't get much of a rest.
The fans have littered the ice, so that'll take a moment to do some house cleaning there. Referee Dave Newell says, let's get things going. The face-off will come out over the Detroit blue line.
This is what Detroit should do now. Make sure that the ice is cleared. St. Louis taking a timeout, I believe, Bruce. Did you just mention that? I see Liut coming over to the bench.
Delorme and Pettersson scored for St. Louis in the first period. Then Danny Gare and Greg Smith for Detroit in the second, a 2-2 tie. Ladouceur scored a shorthanded goal, but then Gilmour on a power play, and it was 3-3. And then Steve Yzerman, set up by Brad Park at 8:43, gave the Red Wings a 4-3 lead. Out of town, here's Larry Adderley's report.
It's that Norris division, and it won't get over yet. In Bloomington, Minnesota leading Chicago now 6-5. The Blackhawks fighting back, but still Minnesota on top by a goal late in the third period. Bruce?
Thank you, Larry. The Chicago Blackhawks couldn't do anything right for most of the season until all of a sudden, returning from injury, Zal Secord. And boy, has he turned that team around.
3 straight games, Bruce. He scored the game-winning goal, both games against Detroit, and then the first game of the playoffs last night.
Here we go now with the game here. The Wings lead it by a goal. Danny Gare slaps the puck back into the St. Louis zone. No icing. Wilson comes back after it. Now Wilson sent it up the right side. Mano tied his man up there. Turning with it is Babbage back in his own zone. We've a minute to play. And Liut coming halfway out of the goal. The puck driven back into the Detroit zone. Stefan came out of the Red Wing goal. Cleared it into the corner. The St. Louis goal is empty. John Barrett took a whack and the play stays. Here's Sutter. Sutter putting it right out in front of it, right through the crease. Now Ramage laid it in behind the Detroit net. Babbage, a centering pass tipped away. And Foster hands it off to Mano, an empty net. Bob Mano shoots at the net and he missed it. And the play came right out in front, and Danny Gare scores into the empty goal. And the Red Wings take a 5-3 lead. As Mano missed the net that came off the boards right to Gare. And Danny Gare, who scored the first Detroit goal, now maybe salts it away.
I'm going to have to talk to Bob Mano about that. He took dead aim after he crossed the St. Louis blue line to make sure of it. Shot, missed the net, the puck bounced right out. Just perfect for Danny Gare coming in, following up. So Gare scoring his second goal of the night, and I would think put the icing on this with just 34 seconds to go, giving the Wings the 2-goal lead. But Danny Gare having no trouble putting it in the empty net, and the ice is really littered down, so we'll have to have a timeout here to get the ice clean.
Dwight Foster started the play back in the Detroit zone. He and Mano draw the assist on Danny Gare's second goal of the game. Second of the series. It comes at 19 minutes and 26 seconds. And the Red Wings lead by 2 with just those 34 seconds remaining. And the St. Louis crowd, as we say, have not just littered the ice, they are continuing to do it. So we're going to have a bit of a pause here.
Most of them are going home, Bruce, too, if you notice them pulling out with a 2-goal lead for the Wings.
Well, it's been a wild hockey game right from the very start, really. St. Louis just controlled the first period, outshot the Wings 13-8. They scored the 2 goals less than a minute apart, but Greg Stefan did some fine work in the Detroit net. But here in the after the second period, when the Wings outshot the Blues 13-2, but it was a penalty-filled period, The Wings tied the hockey game. Then Ladouceur shorthanded goal, and Gilmour the power play. And Yzerman and Gare. Now the Red Wings have scored 3 goals at 7 shots in the third period.
Bruce, I think the big explanation is going to be from the St. Louis coaching staff is how a hockey club could completely control a first period of hockey and take a 2-goal lead and then come out and play a second period and only get 2 shots on the net. It tied the lowest record of shots that St. Louis have ever taken in a playoff game. And the Wings dominated the second period, outbumped them, outskated them, and got back in the game. Here in this third period, there's been very few penalties, really, but the Wings have capitalized when they've had their chances. And Greg Stefan has come up with several big saves to keep the Wings on top.
Now the Wings are leading by 2 with 34 seconds to play in the hockey game. Mike Liut comes back into the St. Louis goal. I don't know why he'd do that. Foster wins a face-off cleanly, and Colin Campbell at his own blue line scoops it ahead. Bob Mano sent it back to Campbell. Now Colin Campbell crosses center ice, fires it in behind the St. Louis net. 20 seconds to play in the game, and here comes another fight. And Colin Campbell again in the middle of it all. And then Ramage went in after Danny Gare over along the boards.
Well, I think we got some fighters, but I'd like to see Foster get out of there because he is...
Oh, he just, I think, was just trying to hold somebody off. But Ramage really made a run at Danny Gare over along the boards after Colin Campbell. And the St. Louis player, I'm not too sure who it was.
Colin Campbell must have had his porridge this morning because he's been in a lot of brawls here this evening.
You believe it's 11:30 coming on in Detroit in another minute.
You know, the puck was just shot into the zone, and Colin Campbell having words first, and they dropped, well, the St. Louis player dropped his stick, and Colin threw him to the ice.
That was Anderson again.
Oh, here we go.
Now we've got Ramage.
Ramage coming over and
Danny Gare.
Oh,
he went after Gare earlier.
He hit Gare when Gare wasn't really paying any attention to him. And he really did lay one on Danny Gare. And this is not this is a mismatch. They've thrown Colin Campbell right out.
Danny Gare can take care of himself.
Oh, yes, I know. He'll fight.
But Ramage gave him a cheap shot, and he gave him one earlier when he charged him over along the boards.
They're taking these players... They know what to expect here because this game is won as far as Detroit is concerned, and St. Louis now are going to try and
Well, you think this is going to set the tempo for the game at the Joe Louis Saturday night and Sunday night?
I believe that was Anderson that was in the first fight.
Yes, it was. And then Ramage is a guy that made the run first of all at Danny Gare, and then, as you said, gave him a cheap shot coming in on the second time.
Well, we'll have 4 penalties here. There's only 23 seconds to go. The Wings with a 2-goal lead. They have finally got this straightened around. Ramage is going to the St. Louis dressing room. Gare and Campbell have gone to the Detroit dressing room.
Red Wings pick up their at least 15th penalty. The St. Louis their 13th.
And now what this series is boiling down to, a 2-out-of-3 series with 2 games played.
Yeah, now we got a heck of a battle going up in the stands.
I hope this isn't a Detroit person too. Well, we're saying Mark and Mary come up and hand me a note, wanted to say hello to Don.
People have to stop handing you notes.
Yeah, no, but these people are really loyal Red Wing fans, and they come in particularly for this game, so I just wanted to acknowledge the fact.
Anderson and Campbell in the first little brawl, and then Ramage and Danny Gare. So they'll all pick up penalties. And the police are handling penalties up in the crowd. We've only 23 seconds to play. Out of town, Winnipeg Jets have taken a 3-2 lead over the Edmonton Oilers in the game at Edmonton in the third period there, and Calgary leading Vancouver 2-1 in the third period at Calgary. And again, referee Newell, who has really had his work cut out for him here tonight, is in a rather lengthy discussion with his 2 linesmen. Ray Scapanello, Randy
Meantime, Greg Stefan down at his end of the ice, just doing a little house cleaning up things that have been thrown out on the ice.
John Barrett is having words with somebody over along the glass down in the corner. He's pointing at somebody. He wants the ushers to come out. Somebody threw something, and Barrett was going over, just pointing at him with the stick. And the 2 linesmen are ushering Barrett away.
That's all we need now is to get all the fans involved in it.
I'm taking my Channel 50 sticker off my jacket before I walk down through this crowd. after the game.
St. Louis used to boast in the fact that they didn't throw things on the ice. Well, they are certainly perturbed here, throwing everything they can get their hands on.
They are still discussing penalties. So the two games will be played at the Joe Louis Arena Saturday and Sunday, as the two teams will come into Detroit all tied at a victory apiece.
Number 12,
Here's
number
Newell.
5, St. Louis, 5 minutes fighting. Okay. Number 5, St. Louis, a game misconduct. And number 18, Detroit, a game misconduct.
Well, that doesn't mean anything because there's only 23 seconds left as Gare and Ramage pick up 5 for fighting and game misconducts.
What is the ruling on misconduct penalties?
I don't think anything.
In the league. Gare got a misconduct last night, I believe, too.
Number 18, Danny Gare, 5 minutes for spearing.
5 for spearing. The spearing call to Danny Gare.
I don't know where that happened.
Number 5, Bob Lemon, 5 minutes for fighting and game misconduct. Penalties at 19:30.
I don't think Danny Gare got a game misconduct last night.
No, I don't think so now.
Okay, Larry, how's that game in Minnesota?
It is finally ended, Bruce, and Minnesota wins it 6-5. That evens their series at 1 apiece, and they move on to Chicago for games 3 and 4 this weekend.
And we may have a similar situation here between the Red Wings and the St. Louis Blues if they ever play the final 23 seconds of this game. Again, they have just littered the ice. Before, it was the linesman that took care of it, but now the Red Wings are the goal behind Greg Stefan is not going to have room for a puck anyway.
If one goes in, they won't find it.
Yeah, it's just filled with paper cups and what have you. And the maintenance men out on the other end of the rink clearing the ice in the St. Louis zone.
But this has been a terrific comeback by the Red Wings after being completely outplayed in the first period, down by 2, to come back and battle their way back into it, tie it, and then come on here in the third period. And they have been a good third period club pretty well all season long. And a couple of the lines got most of the play here tonight. There were a few players that didn't see an awful lot of ice time, but the Wings have just outgutted them.
So the discussions continue inside the St. Louis blue line. The penalty doors are open, but that doesn't mean anything.
Where you go? And Sutter, 2 minutes unsportsmanlike and a 10-minute misconduct.
No, another misconduct. I didn't hear that one. Federico?
Well, I hope they have it all ironed out. We get home.
Sutter. So St. Louis get their penalties. So that means now St. Louis will finish the game short a player. 19 minutes and 37 seconds, the time of this one, too. Sutter gets 2 for unsportsmanlike. And a 10-minute misconduct.
And I know some gentlemen that are happy tonight, too, that there's only 23 seconds to go. It's the game officials from Chicago, because this game is going to wrap up. They're not going to have to figure out when any of these players get back on the ice, because it's going to be over here in a matter of 23 seconds.
If we ever play it.
Well, the referee should get it started now. They can't wait and clean everything. They're going to continue to throw stuff out. So.
I was wrong. Danny Gare picked up 5 minutes for spearing, so each team will be short a man now. Dave Newell trying to get the game going again. The penalty box doors are open. They've got to close those because nobody's going into the penalty box. Each team will play short a man. The Red Wings lead at 5-3. 23 seconds remaining, and again the litter on the ice down deep in the Detroit zone. But they drop the puck anyway, and now here's John Barrett of Detroit. Barrett fires it into the corner in the St. Louis zone. Liut stops it in behind his own net. 12 seconds to go. Now Johnson played it up the left side to Wickenheiser. Wickenheiser turning deep in his own end. Fires it up the right side. It'll go all the way deep into the Detroit zone, and Greg Stefan came out of the goal to clear it off the boards. And John Barrett will lift it out to center ice, and this hockey game is over. And the Detroit Red Wings come up with and somebody threw a cup of beer on the Detroit Red Wings bench just as the game came to an end. The Red Wings out congratulating Greg Stefan, and well, they sure should. He played a heck of a third period here and really is a big reason the Detroit Red Wings have won the hockey game, and now they are going after the ushers are the fan who threw the beer down below us, and right in the middle of it all is Mike Ilitch. Mike was trying to congratulate his boys, and somebody just threw a big cup of beer, and the Ilitches were right there.
Yes, the Ilitch family is right in the middle of this. Marion is now being helped by the trainers down to the Red Wing bench.
And the Red Wings staying right there to make sure everything is all right. So
Barry Melrose is down there. Him straighten a few things out.
But the Red Wings have not gone to the corridor or to their dressing rooms until they know that everything is all right behind the Detroit bench. And now Mike Ilitch is coming out onto the ice. He's going to be escorted by the team. He's pretty unhappy right now with somebody.
And Jimmy Lights, they're all there. Danny Belial is there. They're still pointing at fans.
St. Louis crowd can't be too proud of this tonight. So they're helping the entire Ilitch family now. Marion, she's happy as can be. So that's the story here at the arena in St. Louis. The Detroit Red Wings defeating the St. Louis Blues with a final score 5-3. Larry Adderley, what have you to say?
Bruce, an unfortunate finish that slightly mars the great comeback by the Wings. When you get that first goal scored against you in any game, the odds are that that team will win. Well, St. Louis scored 2 in the first 4 minutes of this game. The Wings survived despite playing a very poor first period. Come out of it with a victory, getting goals from unlikely sources like Greg Smith and Randy Ladouceur, and that's very, very important as they even the series at 1 apiece. I'm looking forward to going back home for some playoff hockey at the Joe Louis Arena. I'll join you and Sid then.
Thank you, Larry, for a good job here tonight and last night from the St. Louis Arena. Larry Adderley live. Well, that's the story of this one. I'll very quickly give you the scoring. Delorme and Pettersson in the first period, and St. Louis controlled the play. Then the Red Wings came out and outshot the Blues 13-2 in the second period, a penalty-filled period. Danny Gare and Greg Smith scoring goals to tie the hockey game. Randy Ladouceur a shorthanded goal early in the third period. Then Gilmour got it back on a power play, a 3-3 tie. But Steve Yzerman scored the winner from Brad Park at 8:43, and then Danny Gare into the empty net from Mano and Foster. A lot of fights, too many of them. But the Red Wings, their biggest care right now is the fact that they've evened the series at a game apiece and now have 2 of the final 3 games to be played at the Joe Louis Arena, which is, of course, Sid, to Detroit's benefit.
Yes, it's a 2 out of 3 series now with the Wings having the extra game instead of St. Louis having it. So this was a great victory for them, and they're going to be happy to go home and see what they can do in Joe Louis Arena.
Saturday night, 7:55 radio broadcast, 8 o'clock television on Channel 50. And the 2 teams, the Red Wings and the St. Louis Blues, who went off the ice with very bitter feelings here tonight, renew hostilities and hockey at, as we say, 8 o'clock game time television, 7:55 radio. So this is Bruce Martin speaking for Sid Abel, for Larry Adderley, for our producer-director Toby Cunningham, hoping you've enjoyed a rather lengthy hockey game here tonight from St. Louis, with once again the series all evened at a game apiece, and the final score, Detroit 5, St. Louis 3.
Red Wing Hockey. Tonight's game has been brought to you by Bud Light. The best has a taste all its own. A clean, distinctive taste is what you'll find in Bud Light. And by your 47 Greater Detroit area Midas shops. Trust the Midas touch. And by the Detroit area J.C. Penney stores, your headquarters for kangaroo shoes. And by Little Caesars.